Good evening. This is a meeting of the Athens Board of Zoning Appeals. The time is 7:01, 7:02, and the date is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025. At this time, I will call the meeting to order. The board currently consists of 5 members and 1 alternate. The alternates taking full part in the discussions and becoming a voting member in the absence of a member or when a member abstains for conflict of interest. Members present tonight are Ben Lockman, Alicia Sweeney, Aaron Thomas, Paul Isherwood, and alternate Shay Myers. I am Rob Delich, Chair of the Board of Zoning Appeals. Also present representing the city tonight are Zoning Administrator Mr. David Riggs and Zoning Intern Corbin Figueroa. Thank you. Not bad. There are five cases. One thing that I say here that we have an alternate tonight, Shay, who will participate in the discussion but will not make a vote on these cases. There are 5 cases tonight on the agenda for properties located at 75 South Shannon Avenue, 63 South Court Street, 16 Tulane Road, 50 Central Avenue, 43 to 45 South Court Street. Board is required to take testimony under oath. Would anyone wishing to speak tonight concerning any item on the agenda please stand? Do you swear or affirm that any testimony you will present to the board will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I swear.
Thank you very much. You may be seated. So I now invite you to view a pre-recorded video of the rules of the board.
The Athens Board of Zoning Appeals operates according under the following procedure. The chair will name and describe the case. The zoning administrator or secretary will state the basis of the objection and any applicable facts or conditions pertaining to the case. The appellant or their representative will give reason why the appeal should be viewed favorably. Anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment will be heard. Anyone wishing to speak in opposition will be heard. If necessary, the appellant or their representative will offer concluding summary or rebuttal remarks. Testimony from the floor shall be closed. The board will deliberate and render a decision. According to Athens City Code Section 23.7.3b, the board has power to grant variances from the strict application of the code, provided the variance will not be contrary to the public interest. The spirit of the code is observed, public safety and welfare are secured, and substantial justice is done. According to Athens City Code Section 23.7.10c, variances from the code shall not be granted unless the board makes specific findings of fact, based directly on the particular evidence presented to it, that the standards and conditions imposed in this title, if applicable, have been met by the applicant. Exceptional circumstances. There are exceptional or extraordinary circumstances or conditions applying to the property in question or to the intended use of the property that do not apply generally to other properties or classes or uses in the same zone. Practical difficulty and undue hardship because of exceptional or extraordinary conditions pertaining to a specific piece of property. A literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. Preservation of equal property rights. Literal interpretation of these regulations would deprive the appellant of rights commonly enjoyed by others in the same zone and the same vicinity, while a granting of the requested variance will not confer on the applicant any special privilege that is denied to other properties in the same zone and the same vicinity. Minimum variance. The variance granted is the minimum variance required to make possible the reasonable use of the property. Absence of detriment. The authorizing of such variance will not be of substantial detriment to adjacent property and will not materially impair the purpose of the zoning code or the public interest. Not of a general nature. The condition or situation of the specific piece of property or the intended use of said property for which variance is sought, one or the other or in combination, is not of so general or recurrent a nature as to make reasonably practicable the formulation of a general regulation for such condition or situation. any person, resident, or officer, department, or appointed body of the City of Athens aggrieved by a decision of the Board may petition the Athens County Court of Common Pleas concerning the illegality of the decision. Such petition must be filed within 30 days after the mailing of the decision of the Board to the applicant.
All right, so we have 5 cases tonight. I'm going to try and move things along pretty well tonight, so I don't want anyone to get too long-winded, just as a warning. So I may cut you off if we've gone too far or too long, just to make sure we can get everything done tonight we need to accomplish. So our first case on the agenda tonight is case number 25-03S at 75 South Shannon Avenue. The appellant is requesting a variance from 23.07.02B to change a legal non-conforming 4-unit owner-occupied residential dwelling to a legal non-conforming 4-unit non-owner-occupied dwelling in a R1 zone. Director Riggs, can you provide us with a brief?
Yes, sir. I would like to make one correction here. This is not a variance. This is a substitution.
Oh, yeah,
so
the
it's
S.
my error on that. I apologize for that. A substitution is a original jurisdiction power of the board where you have a non-conforming use and you're substituting that non-conforming use for another not more objectionable non-conforming use. So a variance, the other 4 cases will all be variances, and you'll need to go through all those 6 findings of fact. A substitution is not a finding of fact. It's just looking at the 2 uses and deciding whether or not that substituted use is more or less non-conforming than the existing use that's there. So this, and this is something we could have done in our office. I just didn't feel comfortable doing that. I would rather have this board look at this rather than us trying to take that on. So we've got a use change. It's a very, in my opinion, a very minor use change. It's going from a 4-unit, which is not permitted in a single-family residential. One of those units was owner-occupied, and the new use will be non-owner-occupied. So the number of units stays the same. It's just going from one of those units being owner-occupied to that unit being non-owner-occupied, and we're asking for a review of a substitution for a legal non-conforming use.
Is this a long-term or short-term?
Long-term.
So yes, note when we make a motion. So the appellant is requesting a substitution. Is that what we should
A
say there?
non-conforming use substitution.
Non-conforming use substitution. Okay.
Director Riggs,
yeah.
question on this one. It looks like from the auditor's site that this was previously had a trustee, and I know that one of the units was empty. Was that the empty unit actually the owner-occupied unit?
I do not know. I don't want to tell you wrong. I don't know the answer to that.
That's fine. We can ask that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, does the board have any other questions for Mr. Riggs?
Does it matter to our decision as to why the previous legal non-conforming status was granted?
Probably what I'm assuming, and most of these legal non-conforming uses are uses that were in effect before the zoning code became effective in the city of Athens. The original zoning, I did some research on this, the original zoning in the city of Athens became effective in June of 1960. Several changes were made, and when a change is made, that sometimes that makes a use that was allowed from the original zone to be non-allowable use, and you don't want to deprive that existing resident of their property owner of their use just because we changed the zoning code. Eventually, what we'd like to see with these uses that are legal non-conforming is that they'll eventually go away. That's the idea, but a lot of them have been around for a really long time.
All right, anything else from Mr. Riggs? So at this time, I'd like to invite the appellant or the representative to please approach the podium and provide any pertinent testimony or give reason why the request should be viewed favorably by the board. And please identify yourself, too.
Hi, my name is Jordan Dean. I am here to represent Panda Girl Properties. It is owned by Jared and Margarita Dean, who are my parents and could unfortunately not be here this evening. They are asking for a non-conforming use substitution. Currently, 75 South Shannon is a legal, non-conforming 4-unit residential property that is a 3-unit non-owner occupied and 1-unit owner occupied. Excuse me. They would like it to become a 4-unit non-owner occupied use per Athens City Code 23.07.02. The property was purchased April 1st of this year, and they do not plan on it being owner occupied. I do have a copy of the previous owner's zoning certificate if you need to see that which indicates the legally grandfathered status of the property. And I also have an email correspondence between John Wharton, who was their realtor, and Lance Allison discussing the recommended BZA request, if that would be of any interest for you to see as well. Apartment 4 was the owner-occupied unit, which is a 2-bedroom unit. The previous owner lived alone. So the only real impact that we could foresee for the neighborhood would possibly be one extra car that would be parked on the area streets if there were 2 tenants that owned cars instead of just the one vehicle that we assumed the previous owner had. From Jared and Margarita, we really appreciate your consideration on this matter.
All right, any questions for the appellant?
I think just the same I had for the director. I was under the impression with this property that it actually had 1 unit that was empty or was unoccupied in recent years. Is that true, or is that not?
I
not the case?
unfortunately do not have this information. I apologize.
No worries. Thank you.
So one note in here says rental permits, there's copies of them going back to 1990, showing a quadplex, since 1975 at least.
Yeah, it doesn't have a transfer, like prior to like the transfer into the trust or trustee in 2004. So it's has not changed hands much.
Is this the house on the corner of Shannon and Morris, or is this one house north of that?
Yeah.
One house north, it's on the alley,
Okay.
next to the alley.
Yeah, I think it's this, but this is the
Okay,
building,
so-
I think it
yeah,
is.
'cause it was
It
shown-
comes up wrong when you put it
Yeah.
in Google.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
not-
It's one
not-
behind
somewhat-
it.
yeah.
It's one,
Okay, yeah.
go around the corner,
It's
kind of
this
sits
like mint
behind it.
color one, right?
So you can see like,
And
it's
that's
like-
this one,
right?
yeah,
Oh.
there's
Comes
like
up
a
wrong,
main
makes sense,
doorway,
right?
and then
That
I think there's
was-
2
That
apartments on
one,
it, so.
okay.
And I guess one thing to discuss, there is no parking at all, right? So there's no parking available on the lot, it seems.
To my understanding, I believe that is correct.
So then, let's see, how many parking spaces would have been required for this? How many bedrooms are there
And the
total?
total, I do not have that information. If that information is available, then
7.
So 7 spaces.
Was parking ever an issue with this location, since it was already had 3 rentals?
2 rentals,
So
and
it's
somebody,
just been street
and a 4th
parking.
person living there. I live around the corner from this, and I've never heard of any issues with parking there.
Because a lot of people just park on the street over there.
We might hear from some neighbors.
Yeah, it's possible somebody could speak about that, yes.
Mr. Chair. This property has 2 one-bedroom units, 1 2-bedroom unit, and 1 3-bedroom unit. So they would need a total of 6 parking spaces, where they have none available.
All right, any other questions for the appellant? All right, so why don't you go ahead and take a seat. If somebody speaks in opposition or in comment to this, then we'll give you another opportunity to rebut if you need to.
thank you very much.
All right, so is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request in addition to the appellant? Okay, seeing none. Anyone wishing to speak in general comment about this? Feel free to approach the podium and identify yourself and tell us what you had to say.
Rob, did they need to add their address? when they identify themselves?
It's a
Happy
good
to.
idea to say where you live, yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
My name is Mike Snavely. I live at 78 South Shannon, so kind of
Neighbor.
across the street.
Okay.
Yeah. So my main question is, what's the requirement for parking for this property? And if the place, I think Ben asked the question that we don't have an answer to, is there are 4 apartments, or how many bedrooms? 6? Is that what you said? 6 bedrooms, so there could be 6 cars. Currently, there may be 2 bedrooms occupied, 2 cars. That's a significant difference. So I'd like to know where those cars are going to land and what the impact is for a neighborhood. And I don't need a street parking space where I live. I'm happy to use my driveway, and most of my friends who might come to visit me are happy to use that also. So it's not about me, it's more about just in general seeing the same old cars parked out in the street all the time because there's no parking for them. So that's my question. I'm blissfully ignorant about what the rules are. So my comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a question for Mr. Riggs. I know certain parts of that neighborhood, you can't have 24-hour parking on the street. Is that correct?
So that changed a few years ago, the 24-hour parking. Anybody that has, it's 1 per structure, but anybody who has no on-site parking spaces can request a parking sticker that they can put on, and that's citywide. So it's not, it used to be just confined to certain streets, but now it's citywide. So one person could ask for an on-site or an off-site street parking on this structure.
1 person per unit.
1 person, period.
1 period. Okay.
For this,
Structure.
yes.
Building, yeah.
So that would be a 72-hour permit is what that is.
Yeah.
So not a significant change, but it's a little less hassle to have to move a car every day, which would get annoying, I think.
But only for one of the
One
Six.
of 6, one of the 6
of those.
beds.
Yeah, I still think it was listed as having 7 units or 7 beds, and the auditor has it on 7 beds as well. So I'm not sure. It may
6 or 7?
Yeah, 6
Okay.
or 7. Yeah.
All right, is there anyone wishing to speak in opposition to this case? All right, seeing none. The appellant, would you like to make any statement? Okay. I am closing testimony from the floor, and the board will now deliberate. So, anyone want to start? So we don't have to go through the 6 questions at this point. We could still use them as a guideline if we wanted to think about the implications, but it's up to us. I think we can.
I had a question for Mr. Riggs. So I know it was conversation about them changing the parking requirements per bed. Is that still something that's on the books?
We have made some changes, reduced those parking requirements significantly. I think there's room to make more changes. The city planner and myself, we've not moved forward on that yet, but it's something I think we should be discussing, yeah. Reducing parking further.
Right.
And
Requirements further.
remind me, and I know it actually comes up in our next case, I think, or one of our next cases. In B zones, which this is not, there's a ability for high density housing to have lower parking requirements as well, isn't it? It's reduced by half.
Yeah, in some areas, and I had to look at the code, you can have off-site parking. So you do, typically what you do is you legally take those parking spaces away from an adjacent property and assign those to a different address. The way the code's right now, if it's within 1,000 feet, so you could do off-site parking within 1,000 feet. You would not have to come before the Board of Zoning Appeals for approval. If it's more than 1,000 feet, it would, and that's where one of these cases is.
But is there also an option to reduce the reduce the number of required spaces?
50%
Yes.
if they're within a certain distance from public transportation.
Right. Which this would be, because there's public transit at the corner of May and
Currently,
Morris.
yes, there is a
Okay,
bus route.
thank you.
Yeah, so the city's parking requirements they would have added 4, I think, to this originally. So just 5 years ago, 4 years ago, it was changed, 4 years ago.
Yes.
So it would have had, if it was 6 now, it would have been 10 before that changed, which seems rather excessive.
I knew it was in the works, so that's always been an issue with some of these properties, is parking and stacked parking and everything else.
But yeah, and this doesn't even have stacked parking.
Yeah.
I don't think.
This is kind of a butts. I think everything in that kind of corner, that neighborhood, like along Morris, is still in an R1 zone, but it does abut some other, like, kind of different uses other than single family. There's the funeral home's right around the corner. There's a church kind of across Morris, and then like right just south of it, there's I don't actually know what it is. There's like a storefront on the ground level. I'm not really sure what it's used for.
It's just an apartment building at this point, but
Okay,
it
but I
burned
think
recently.
used to be maybe a commercial use.
It was an artist studio.
Okay, yeah.
The one that's just on the
Yeah.
corner there.
So I mean, it's not, I think, not inconsistent with the neighborhood, you know.
And I think the Red Cross is pocket zoned as a
Yeah.
B zone as well.
Yeah.
So it is definitely has some, like, that corner of the neighborhood has a bit of a mix going on, and you know, I think the property that you just mentioned that abuts it on the corner is, like, it would be nice to have a business in there potentially on the ground floor.
Yeah, and that's rumored to have been a grocery store originally.
Yeah, I think
On the
that's
ground floor.
So that's on my biggest thing, was just, if we make this motion, will we have to put anything with parking? But it's not in the actual.
That would still be grandfathered in if we
Yeah.
just
Okay.
make this, allow this
Okay.
substitution.
All right.
So that's a consideration. My opinion about parking like this is that ideally, if somebody has an issue parking there and having to move their car every day, they would look somewhere else for an apartment. So somebody that's going to live in this spot would know that they're getting into that, and maybe even would be people that don't have cars potentially.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah,
walking
and I think
distance.
that's the case currently in my, there's a lot of grad students and other folks that either use public transit or walk primarily that have lived there, you know, in recent years. I'm just around the corner from that property.
Likewise. Yeah. Okay, so any other discussion?
I think the only other point, as I will say, is on the auditor's aerial imagery, it does have people parked in the alleyway. 2 cars,
That is,
which is not
my experience, that's the neighbors on the north side, the other side of the alley.
not this one.
That are regularly parking in the alley, and I've had to report that numerous times myself.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily this case, but
Yeah, I don't think it's the residents from this property, but. All right, would anybody like to propose a motion?
I will make a motion to request a substitution in accordance with ACC 23.01.02B to change the legal non-conforming 4-unit owner-occupied residential dwelling to a legal non-conforming 4-unit non-owner occupied dwelling in the R1 zone for 75 South Shannon.
I'll second the motion.
One note that you need to make sure you say non-conforming use substitution.
Yeah.
For a legal non-conforming use substitution for dwelling in the R1 zone.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, any further discussion before we take a vote? Seeing none, okay, all in favor?
Well, I think I have a kind of general question around this. You know, this is a R1, which is owner occupied generally. Does this, you know, as a substitution, is it a basically no change at all in impact to the surrounding neighborhood. Is it a improvement? Possibly. Is it or is it a negative impact on the neighborhood? And I think that's the core question around a substitution. And
That's a hard one to answer, right?
it is, yeah. I don't think it's a huge movement in either direction.
That was my question for long-term versus short-term. So
Yeah.
that was that.
Well, and to get to what Director Riggs said when he was sort of talking about this, of like, ideally you get away from the non-conforming and eventually all of this would be in accordance with what's allowed in R1. So like, technically, should we really further a non-conforming use? I don't think that this has really any difference between the current non-conforming use and what they're proposing. There won't really be an impact, but in the like ideal scenario, we should be getting away from the non-conforming use.
So the other approach with that is that zoning could, in the R1 zone, could be made more flexible to allow to
High-density
duplexes,
multi-unit.
triplexes, and
Yeah.
up to fourplexes would be a reasonable thing. I mean, this doesn't look out of place in the neighborhood, right?
Yeah.
Not particularly.
So I think that's the way this could go, and this is what's happening around the country, is the
Yeah,
R1 zoning,
quadplexes.
that's restrictions being loosened to allow up to quadplexes.
I believe they was doing it here with this, they was changing setbacks up. That was like on the council here last year. They was looking at how to smaller lots to build things on.
And that was a step in that direction too, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, this would still be considered a form of missing middle housing, generally consistent with that kind of, well, really like our kind of Athens, most of our Athens neighborhoods, including this neighborhood. I think functionally to keep this, to prohibit this from transitioning into a non-owner occupied unit, I think it just creates functional problems. I mean, this would require someone to purchase this unit and either live in one of the units or to basically claim one of the units as owner occupied and not use it.
Which I think is how
which
that
is-
was its previous.
Yeah, which is, I mean, all that's doing is taking a unit off the market.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and so this is not fundamentally changing the
No.
nature of that building in any real way, other than there may be more people living there.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
And there are non-owner occupied rental units on the same street in the same neighborhood.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to talk that through.
Yeah, no, it was good. It was a good discussion, thank you.
Yeah.
All right, ready to call for a vote? So all in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? All right, you have your variance or substitution.
Substitution.
Non-conforming use substitution. All right, next case. Number 25-04V for a variance at 63 South Court Street. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.03.13 I1G to allow 2 projecting signs where there is 1 permitted and a length of 4 feet 10 7/8 inches, where 3 foot 6 inches is the maximum permitted. Okay, Mr. Riggs, will you please give us your brief?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is actually 2 variances. One is for, only one projecting sign is allowed on any building, and that is part of 230313. I1G, it actually says, in no case is more than 1 projecting sign permitted on a premise or use. And the other one is the size, so we're going from 3'6" to 4 foot, a little over 10 inches. I will note that this is the Lobster building, so it's located on an intersection, so it kind of makes a little bit of sense to have 2 of these projection signs, 1 on each road frontage, but
Would that be Union and Court, basically,
sir.
like the corner?
Yeah.
Okay.
so it would be different if it was inside of a block, but this is actually a corner building.
And maybe the appellant will answer this, but will there be an entrance from the Union Street? Or only an entrance into it from South Court Street?
I believe all of the entrances, this is a multi-use building, so there's gonna be a restaurant, there's gonna be apartments or hotel space upstairs. There's talk about some use on the basement level. So, but I think they're all gonna be accessed through Court Street, and
Okay.
I don't think they'll have any access off of Union.
Okay.
How big is the current temporary sign that's up there?
That
big.
banner?
Right, the banner, right, that's,
Banner, yeah, they actually allow a lot, temporary signs are a lot larger.
well, that just kind of give us the scale as it's going to be smaller than that temporary sign.
Yes.
Okay.
There are some projecting signs on, in the vicinity and uptown, but they're very small, is what my observation is. And if you haven't looked at the street view imagery,
You can see the top of your
you see
head.
my car, I'm in the street view imagery. It was just shot in January, so there's some pretty current street view imagery available to get the perspective. There's a very small projecting sign at Chipotle. There's one at the florist,
Is there
and
one at Chipotle?
Yeah, Chipotle. kinda
it's
comes off
small.
the building.
In fact, it's hard to see it because it's small. Yeah, so,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, it only sticks out maybe 2 feet. In fact, that's what I'm noticing is that the projection is maybe 2 feet for most of the existing projecting signs.
Yeah.
So is this going to overhang the sidewalk, or what is the final, like, idea for the sign? Is it,
So yeah, projecting signs actually extend out from the building. We, in most of the uptown, the B2D district, the right-of-way is actually on the building face. So technically, this will stick into the city's public right-of-way a bit. We typically don't consider that an encroachment into the right-of-way until it becomes more than about 2 feet. So if you were to do a balcony or a sign projecting, perpendicular to the building face, then we would actually have an additional requirement to get a special use of the city's right-of-way because they're projecting or overhanging into the city's property. But these types of signs, we are not, don't stick out that far, and we don't consider those to require a special use permit.
Oh, okay.
this one's for, well,
I was a little confused because in the refusal it says this is about the number of signs and then the length of the signs, but in the appellant's letter is it about setback distance? Is there an issue of setback distance?
There are some additional requirements that signs need to be set back from the corners of the buildings.
Okay.
I don't recall if that's the case here, and we didn't include that in our refusal. So we're only looking at the 2 signs and the size of those signs, and not the setback from the corners or the edges of the building.
Yeah, maybe it's the length, the size of the signs that infringes on the required setback.
Don't believe that's the case.
Okay.
I don't believe that's the case.
so I'm trying to get a visual of this sign on. So are we going to go up? Is it going to look like the Brony sign comes out 2 feet, go up 4 feet, or is it going to be stuck on one side and protruding over the sidewalk?
I think they've got
I was trying to find a
I don't
picture.
think there's any picture in the
We don't know.
in the case.
Yeah, so,
Maybe the
Because this can go a bunch of different ways, right?
Yeah,
It can,
yeah.
this is an example of what it could look like.
right.
Yeah.
It can, that's where,
That's in
like,
Columbus.
Yeah, and,
Oh, like that?
but like that's
Yeah.
on,
Well, that may be a little small compared to what we're talking
but
about.
that's a way bigger sidewalk than what we have uptown.
yeah.
And that was my dilemma, is like comparable to most downtowns, when you got a sidewalk that's twice the size of what we have uptown, you go put a 4-foot sign over.
Yeah. And
So
it's
you're
on the
hanging it.
corner of the building instead of 2.
4 foot should be hanging into the,
I think
Parking spaces.
The request is almost 5. It's 4 foot 10,
Yeah.
I think. and 7/8. Yeah. So
Yeah, I
5
don't
feet.
think it's height. I think it's protruding.
That was my question. Is it going
Yeah.
up? Is it going out?
Yeah.
Right.
It's only a couple feet tall, I think. So it's this oval.
Okay,
That's
that's,
only a couple feet. It's like the range I think it's going to hang at is from 9 feet to 11 feet or somewhere approximately.
Yeah,
If
so
you look
yeah, so
carefully
it's
there.
11 feet 3 inches to 9 foot 11 inches from between the top and the bottom from the ground to the bottom is 9 foot 11, almost 12 feet.
So it's only a little over like 1.5 feet tall. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay.
it's basically that sign there.
Similar.
Similar to that sign. That's,
Any other?
you look at the sidewalk, though, you see that it's a lot more,
Scale is
a lot more real estate there than,
So any other questions for Mr. Riggs at this point? All right, so let's invite the appellant or the representative to please approach the podium, provide any pertinent testimony, give a reason why their question be viewed favorably. Please identify yourself and who you're representing.
Hi, my name is Jen Crack. I'm with Oleo Development Group, the regional developer for Raising Cane's, 1062 Ridge Street, Columbus, Ohio. And I'm here to plead our case for our signs. I hope I can clear up a bunch of the questions that I just heard. Yes, the sign is a perpendicular projection over the sidewalk. We are requesting 2 locations. I'm going to go into that one first. This building, as you may be aware, is historically registered. We've had a lot of back and forth with SHPO National Parks. There's lots of restrictions here, and unfortunately, we are a little encumbered as we are not able to have a true wall sign. There's also no canopies allowed on this building, so we cannot utilize a canopy sign for this location. Really, the only option that we have left is a projecting sign, which is acting as the main signage. I believe you referenced Chipotle. Very familiar with them. I think it's just their logo that's on the projecting sign. And unfortunately, the size is a little bit of an issue when we don't have that additional wall sign for customer recognition. So that is the reason for the request for the 2 signs. A little more information. We do have an entrance on Court Street and Union Street. So there is customer entrance on both, and that is another reason for having the sign. It's adjacent to the customer entrance, on Union.
Is there a primary entrance, or are they like fairly equal?
They're fairly equal, I would say. They are both single-door entrances. The one on Court Street does have a vestibule. We are utilizing an air curtain for the one on Union. The one on Union is closer to the cash register and is projected probably to be used a lot more for kind of call-ahead mobile pickup order. So I would say fairly equal.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
So any idea how far down the building from the corner that Union Street entrance will be? I see 3,
I'm assuming we're that.
4, 5, or 6 sets of windows.
Yes, it is at the, really that kind of 4th set of windows. There's,
Where there used to be a door.
yes. Yep, we're using the same location where there was the door. And then the sign would be located just before that, closer to Court.
And they're the same signs, just.
Same exact signs, yes. Yes, and also to address, moving on to the size of the signs, unless there are any other questions about the 2 signs.
Yeah, I guess one thing I'm just wondering if you're aware is the city will be changing the traffic flow on Union Street in the near future. I think that's out for bid now, or if it's not, it's going out soon. So in the next year or so, it's going to be 2-way traffic on this block of Union, which could help with visibility of your business, certainly.
Yeah.
I think it's not good for the businesses the way the traffic flow is set up now. It would be improved, I think, with the 2-way traffic.
Oh,
So
nice.
you're familiar with that?
I am not myself personally familiar
Okay.
with it. I'm sure the owner of the Lasher building is.
They might know.
Yeah.
I don't know if that affects anything with the sign, but it seems like it's just a good thing to keep in mind.
Are you all planning on utilize the original sign spaces that was there? Like with the bookstore sign?
So if they were in the transom windows, we're not permitted to. That's
So
part of the
there's-
National Parks restrictions.
Looks like one was hanging in front of one of
Yes.
those sets, and that would not be allowed either, is that what you're?
Correct.
I think it might have been, I think it was removed. And so there's still a transom there. They would not allow it to be put back up.
Yes.
So does the sign get mounted in the brick between your kind of storefront windows and then your second floor windows?
Yes, actually, if it helps at all, I did pull up a rendering that the Canes team had done. I'm happy to approach the bench and share.
Please, yeah, that would be helpful.
It's very
Rob likes
hard
the bench.
to, it's very hard to visualize.
Well, we're up here looking at the Columbus Cane sign.
Okay, so it's even smaller, I think, than,
It does seem smaller than it does on, oh, there's a better one on paper. And the height also, I think, reduces the presence of it.
It's not as big as it felt like it's going
yeah, it's not as big as
to
the
Right, right.
Maybe not as big as the one in Columbus.
The one in Columbus, yeah.
So there's the Union Street.
But it's going to be up so high that it won't look as big.
So that's near the corner on which
Yes,
side? That's on Court?
Court. A little bit
So
further.
that's,
Okay.
they're smaller than I thought they'd be.
Do you have the side view?
Because the Chipotle sign is maybe like 8 or Chipotle maybe like
There you
92. They overhang they have.
Yeah.
And so the scale's right on that for the
Yes.
measurements we're talking about here?
Yes. Yep, these were all scaled according to as-built. Okay.
That's helpful.
Thank you.
It's very helpful.
Yes, visuals are always very helpful.
So are these illuminated signs?
They are illuminated from the bar on the top, shining down. We are not permitted to internally illuminate per national parks.
Is it just kind of a spot on the
Yep.
sign itself? It's not like illuminating the
Exactly.
area around the.
Yep, it's,
Very nice.
actually, I think if you look at the page with the cut sheet of the actual sign, it's 2 lights
Oh, we got that.
that
Oh, we don't
come
have
down so that they
Oh.
direct onto the sign itself.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't think we have that sheet in our documents. So.
Oh,
Thank you for explaining that, though.
of course,
Yeah.
And seeing the visual, that's also helpful.
yes.
All right. Any other questions? So again, we're talking about 2 things, the length of the sign, and we just saw visuals on that, how far it sticks out. Also that there's 2 signs, which is not allowed by code. So any other questions regarding the number of signs here? My one thought was, would it be possible to put something projecting off the corner
Yeah.
instead of, it's close to the corner, putting it angled across from the corner to cover both directions, but.
We did think of that, and National Parks had a lot of opinions about how we could install the signs. So we have to measure very carefully, install in the mortar joints, not disturb the brick. So it's going to be a bit of an engineering feat to get them installed properly.
Any other questions for the appellant or representative? All right, thanks, and if there's opposition, we'll let you rebut if necessary.
Thank you.
Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of the request additionally? Anyone in general comment about this? Anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Okay, so I will close testimony from the floor, and the board will now deliberate. So, discussion?
I'm a bit surprised that we didn't have any opposition, to be honest.
Yeah.
I know, I was expecting someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my concern with this is that there's additional businesses and it's a mixed use building. I'm concerned with others also wanting to do the same thing.
That's a good question.
I think that the one at the corner is close enough to the corner that it, in my opinion, kind of gets the point across that it is in that building. And then having the additional signage on the doors makes it clear that that's where the Canes is. I don't see the minimum variance for having 2 signs, I guess.
So the one in the corner you think then is sufficient, potentially with the fact that there is signage on the door or next to the door, right?
So Director Riggs, is there going to be a limit on signs for this location since it's going to have multiple things in the building as far as apartments and restaurants and whatever else?
Yeah, so we have to look at the structure as a whole. There's a maximum amount of signage you can have on each face of the building. And so it will reduce the amount of signage that the other users would have here.
But would every user have to do the same installation? They can't do a facing sign like the old bookstore sign. It has to be.
I don't know the answer to that. That is where the appellant here has been talking to the state historical society regarding their requirements, and those are not the city's requirements. Those are requirements over and above what we have.
So yeah, there's going to be, I think it's been reported, another restaurant business. It's Playa Bowls, I think, in the same building. I'm not sure if that's going to be down where Odyssey Nutrition used to be or something to that effect, or if that's maybe in the basement, I don't know. So that's another business that would need some kind of signage. And then the Lostro Hotel facility would probably need something.
Yeah.
Unless it just ends up being apartments. I don't know.
So with this, what is the limit to the number of signs? Would this use up all the signs allowed for that?
Would that be the city or historical society?
Well,
that
even
was,
just from the city's perspective, what's our limit for the number of
Right.
signs?
Go back and look. Hold on.
My feeling is that I think the students will find Raising Cane's. Even if it was completely unmarked, but
Follow their noses.
the line. Just look for the line outside.
There's Google Maps.
It's Rob Maps.
Rob Maps, yeah.
You had to update it. Yeah, that was my biggest concern is that with the different places that's going to be in there, how many signs are going to be hanging off the building 2
Well,
years from now?
it is a fairly large building, though. Like the frontage, particularly on Union, is like quite long, and so if it had a couple more signs that were also like similar in style, I think it aesthetically can support that without becoming,
Well, I guess the other question, if this uses up all the sign allowance,
Right, that's-
then are those businesses
Fair,
then not
yeah, yeah.
allowed to put up a sign?
yes, I think that's
One
a completely
4-foot
different thing.
sign
Yeah.
for the
Yeah.
whole building.
Well, and they've added 2 entrances on the court side, or on the Court Street side. So there's the entrance that was already existing, and then if you walk by now, there is a door where the windows were closest to the
Yes.
corner. So there is a
Yeah.
door there now, which I'm assuming is what's going into the Canes portion, since they're also using the access on Union Street. And then the other doors will be for where the other businesses' entrance will be into, / the hotel's entrance, I think.
But they can't replace the university bookstore sign, right? So that's completely out. Okay.
Yeah.
Because this glass facade
It
has
looks
to
like
stay.
it was in the image. It was glass with
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
logo on it.
So the code says that for projecting signs in a B2D, it's one projecting sign per use. So every one of those uses could potentially have a projecting sign that's allowed, limited to the size that they were saying. Now, there's other types of signs that are allowed in a B2D, but for projecting signs, it's 1 per use. So if you have 4 uses there, you could have 4 projecting signs.
That's a lot.
Especially when there's very few projecting signs, and the ones that exist seem to be a couple feet is all.
Yeah.
And they're probably underneath the threshold where the city didn't even have to do anything about those.
Yeah.
So for wall or panel signs, for instance, it's 40% of the building space per side. So there's limits to that too, if you wanted to do wall or panel signs. But
that's-
projecting signs are different.
Yeah.
The panel signs seem to be excluded from this structure, right?
Due to historic sign.
And awning signs, which are generally allowed in B2D, I've heard that they're not permitted there either, so.
Yeah.
There was one on this building, though. I'm not sure if it's still there. I have to look at the more recent imagery. I'm looking at the old one now, but
Yeah.
there was an awning projecting
right
at the back corner of the building.
Yeah.
But that was the,
One question on the height of the proposed sign, is that's within
I don't think for
code,
projecting signs.
the 911, like,
Yeah, I think it's 9 to 14 or something is what the limit is under the city code. There's a document in here that has.
Yeah, in no case shall the top of the sign exceed 14 feet.
so it's well within the parameters of current code on the vertical placement and size.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the horizontal that's the issue.
Yeah. Honestly, after seeing the renderings, I think the size is acceptable.
Yeah. I think, and they're asking for, is it two separate variances?
Yeah, and it's two variances, one for two signs where one is allowed, and the other one is for the size of variance.
So we could move separately on those
Yeah, I think,
if we wanted to.
yeah. Do we need to do a finding of fact?
Yeah.
Yes.
Go through the.
Okay, so let's go through that. So are there exceptional circumstances? The historical nature
yeah.
is a big restriction here. It's certainly a big factor. Practical difficulty and undue hardship. So there's no setback on this building from the city street, city right-of-way. It's right to the right-of-way, and the two sides, it fronts the street, and on the back sides, there's no opportunity because it's right on the property line there as well. So there's, the building footprint is the property footprint, basically.
But they do have, I mean, any other business would be allowed to have a single 3'6" projecting business sign.
Yeah.
So those kind of exceptional circumstances are basically like they want to mark two entrances, which is, and then the other one is that their, brand sign is just larger. So I think that those end up being a little bit more self-imposed than anything inherent to the property.
I guess
2 foot, that's what they
the only thing I guess I'll add the exceptional circumstance to this is the fact that it's a historic building, and so they can't have the awnings and they can't have additional signage, whereas other businesses could, which is maybe why they want it to be bigger and why they want multiple of them.
So that's providing the practical difficulty for them.
Sorry, which question are we on, Rob?
Practical.
Practical difficulty and undue
Yeah, so I
hardship.
would say that exceptional circumstances, I'm with Alicia,
Yeah.
and that there are exceptional circumstances. I'm unsure if there are practical difficulties
Undue hardship, yeah.
There is other businesses are allowed to have projecting signs. There's a size for those.
And the projecting sign here is a little larger. I
Yeah.
think part of the excuse is their logo is oval, and so therefore it needs to be a certain size to even be useful as a
Yeah,
projecting
I
sign.
mean, that's not my
Again,
job.
that's not practical difficulty and undue hardship technically.
Yeah.
Right, to Shay's point.
Yeah, unless you don't like their logo, it's not practical.
and it's acquired a few signs uptown already to project out, so.
Yeah.
There are a few, yeah.
A few, not very far though.
Could set the trend, could be more now.
Preservation of equal property rights. So there are some projecting signs. There don't seem to be any that have more than one, though. And I went through the street view for the entire uptown area. and saw very few that really have projecting signs. Most of them have facades,
Yeah,
facade
a few of them
signs.
seem like they're like projecting in their letters that come like the old China King sign, which is no longer there. But I saw that on Street View as well, where it's like it comes out from the building. It's suspended from the front face of the building, but
It's not too many businesses that has a corner either. I mean, Chase
Yeah.
Bank is one of the few that
Yeah.
be comparable, but
And Chase
People-
has facade
yeah.
signs on
Yeah.
both sides.
and they got two entrances. So.
People's Bank, same thing.
Do any of them have two signs?
Yeah, they both have 2 signs.
Two facade signs, so
Yeah.
right now
Yeah, two
projecting
facade
signs. Yeah, so, yeah, the bank has a sign on each face of the streets where it's.
Court in Washington.
And Chase does too, yes, Chase does
Yeah,
as well.
Chase has 2.
So, I think it's sort of gray with the equal property rights here. It's, one of the questions is the 2 signs. I don't think that anyone has done that. And so that may be the part that's not really, somebody else hasn't done it and been granted that.
I mean, I actually looking at Chase's, I think that would classify as a projecting. Like
It looks like it sticks out a little bit.
it is. I mean, it's like, it's the Chase, but it's 3-dimensionally into the right of way.
A little bit.
It's not obviously,
It's not
4
5
feet,
feet.
right? 5 feet, but it's. I mean, I think
But it's comparable to.
and they do have one
Looking
on both facades.
Yeah. Would that be considered a projecting sign, though?
I mean,
It comes out a ways.
Like,
The projecting sign is more than 2 feet, is that what you had said earlier?
is that what the? Okay, so it would not be in that
Okay.
scenario. I think, yeah.
Minimum variance.
Well, we just actually go back to the preservation of equal property rights.
Okay.
We'd be granting, this would be sort of granting a special privilege to certain times. You could have a much larger sign than other people.
A much larger projecting sign.
Yeah.
Projecting sign. It is a little larger, yep. And it would be the largest, I think, in Uptown.
Yes,
But I think
certainly.
that probably could point in that it's not the largest sign uptown
Yeah,
No.
by any
No,
means.
but largest projection, yeah.
yeah.
And there's the, sort of the rub with the historical character, preserving that and abiding by those regulations. Minimum variance? How far beyond the limit? It's a foot and how many inches beyond the
Just under.
extending?
It's like basically 2 feet. So
It's almost 2 feet.
it's like 16th inch short of a foot. So I mean, it's basically
Yeah.
2 feet. So it's a foot,
A foot
and a half.
It's a foot 5 inches
Yeah.
approximately. Any comments about minimum variance? I don't think anybody said anything. Obviously, the minimum variance for the number of signs would be, not having a variance would just be 1. Is the minimum variance 1 more, I guess?
Yeah, I mean,
Maybe.
you can't have half a sign, right?
Yeah. And as far as the length, it's definitely longer, but it's a foot and 5 inches. Maybe that's not excessive. I'm not sure.
No, the rendering she showed us, it looks pretty
didn't-
proportioned to the sidewalk.
It didn't look bad in that respect, yes, I agree.
Yeah.
At least we've seen the rendering. So
Yeah, so I think from that view, I think minimum variance is pretty reasonable. You might not ask for a variance, but if you're going to ask for a variance, it's probably this
Yeah,
one.
it's not like a ginormous sign that sticks out. Right?
It sounds like it is, but it doesn't
Yeah.
seem too bad.
Yeah.
Absence of detriment. So is this impacting anyone else? Is it impacting the pedestrian experience? It doesn't seem to be. It's the height's right. And
I think
the
question
lighting
would be,
seems
does
good.
The lighting seems reasonable. I think it would be impacting other businesses in the same building. Like
and it's a downfiring light, so it should be. I think the lights.
yeah, the
on
lighting
top,
should
so
be
it's-
fine.
Yeah.
I think.
And we've heard that this doesn't stop other businesses from putting up a similar sign if they want to.
Right, but they have 2, right? So
Yeah.
if
But they're not on a corner, but they're not on, they're not on, they're not on either end of the building.
I'm saying within the same building.
Oh,
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's
So it-
another
Other units that may
hotel.
come in, other businesses.
yeah.
Maybe it'd
Yeah,
be something else
the
right down the
hotel-
road.
yeah,
It's
the
like, if do we
hotel
let every single one of those each have 2 signs? And then, that's, now we have,
25 cents.
I think we're only at 8 maybe. But,
At least 9.
yeah. But I think that's the absence of detriment. I don't know that there is an absence of detriment in that scenario.
I think for the public good, there's not really a detriment here that I can see. If the sign projected, it seemed like it was excessively large, then that might be, but, and I guess that's opinion on that, so. Not of a general nature, so.
I think this is a pretty specific building.
Yeah,
It was in
very
Athens.
specific
It's,
issues here.
Clearly a historic use case that changes it.
Yeah, I think if this was on those restrictions, it sounds like they would have done some other signage.
Yeah.
So the windows are the only other option, basically, is what they're going to affix something to the window to
Right, I mean-
provide additional visibility, but.
Does that?
So that's it. Would someone like to propose a motion?
I think my preference would be to split these.
I think so.
And I'm happy to do a motion for
That sounds good.
the first, the size. I'll do size. Let me get the back up.
So you're going to do the length first?
Yeah.
Okay.
I move to grant a variance from ACC 23, for the case number 25-04B, located at 63 South Court Street. I move to grant a variance from ACC 23.02.13 I1G to allow a 4 foot and 10 inch and 7/8 inches sign where projecting sign where a 3 foot 6 inches sign is the maximum permitted.
Second.
Is that okay?
Any discussion before we vote?
So this is on the size.
This is the size.
Just size only.
Size. All right. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have all 5 in favor and none opposed for that first variance. So now the next variance. Are you going to also make that motion?
I can make that motion too. I think I can do it now. And second motion in case 25-04V, located at 63 South Court Street. I move to approve a variance from ACC 23.03.13 I1G to allow 2 projecting signs where 1 is permitted.
All right, any discussion before we vote?
I think we need a second, don't we?
I'll second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All right, call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. We have 1 vote for and opposed. 4 votes opposed, so the second sign is not approved. Okay, on to the next case. We're doing okay on time, I'd say. Case number 25-05V at 16 Tulane Road. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.08.01A to allow parking in front of a structure. Mr. Riggs, you have a brief for us on this
Yeah, thank you,
case.
Mr. Chair. The code specifically does not allow parking for ACC 230801A. It says, shall not be located between the right-of-way line and the front of a structure except in front of attached garage, carport, or parking area. So they specifically prohibit that, and I think the reason was because there were a lot of rental units where they park in the front yard right in front of the structures. So years ago, the city changed the code to prohibit that, and we're asking for a variance to allow 1 parking space in front of the structure.
So one, you said?
I think it's one.
So it's in front of a structure, but it's not in front of the garage, so it's in front of, but it's,
It would be permitted if it was in front of the garage or if it was in a driveway. That's permitted. Even if the driveway is partly in front of the structure, that would be permitted.
but there's no driveway here and they want to put one in basically?
Yes.
Okay, that's fine.
And the house sits back
Well,
off the street.
it's a turnaround, so there's
Yes.
a driveway with a carport, and
Yeah.
then there's a right angle spot to back into a turnaround.
And there's no off-street parking.
But there's a carport.
There's a carport.
So there could be more than one parking space there. It's 400 square feet. Of
So
parking
you
and
could
turnaround.
fit two in there.
So is the,
So I'd note that if you look at the photo, it's gravel there now, so clearly it's being used like this intent already, it seems to me.
so is the request to put in a hard surface to
Yeah,
put,
gravel is not a permitted surface for parking, so it's actually not, I mean, somebody would park there, they'd
Yeah.
get a ticket.
okay.
Yeah, if you could.
If you could see it. Can't see it from the street probably.
A question on lot coverage. Does this approach the lot coverage? Because it's a pretty small
We
parcel.
significantly changed the
Yeah, I know.
lot coverage numbers.
Yeah,
See, there's
yeah, it's in the
gravel
picture,
here.
yeah.
They're definitely using it in here already.
Yeah, I wrote about
So,
that.
62% lot coverage.
After the addition.
After the addition, yes.
And what's the current?
Gotta look that up.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I know that that's changed, so I just want to
Garage street view.
understand where we're at.
I think you can have up to 70% now.
Up to 70.
Impervious and 50% building coverage, I believe.
Give me a second here.
Okay.
It's kind of hard to
70%.
Are you trying to find it in the map?
Maximum
Yeah.
impervious.
Yeah, it's tricky. The houses are positioned
find. Yeah.
uniquely.
Yeah, we just had this discussion, I feel like,
Yes, this lot, we already had another case recently.
Yeah, how do you access this property? Is it from McGuffey Lane or
No,
Woodside
you
Drive?
two lane.
From two-lane.
Two lane.
From that driveway that's right next to the another house.
Okay.
It's
Is
a
it
flag
here?
lot.
Yeah, he wasn't here for the last meeting. It kind of shares a driveway and a lot.
Well, I'm shocked that we allow
we
them.
had this
This
is
is
the
about the
house.
fence?
This is the house. This is the house defense.
I
Yes.
was
I watched the
before
meeting.
and
Okay,
it's
okay.
not.
This is the house of
Okay, I
defense.
thought it was familiar. All right, got it.
Oh, this is the one, yeah, we're doing the take the lawnmower through.
Yeah,
the yard,
there you go. See.
Okay.
Okay, so yeah, we talked about this property.
Yes, and it was built a certain way,
Yeah, yeah.
so now
This is like
any changes kind of
These are
got to be
hot
approved because
this is a fence.
where the property was designed
So there's a
50 years
wall.
ago.
So the plan is to pave this area? This area? Is
That was my
Yes.
question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Concrete.
Where's the car supposed to be?
So this is the wall between
So
the
it's
two.
all, it's not even visible from anywhere.
So-
I think it's kind of like a flag lot where
As far as I can tell.
there's basically just like a little strip that the driveway.
So with-
Are you finding the detail, or did you get the detail?
That's the backyard.
Actually, 70%.
I guess this, which I believe is
Fence?
64. So
It's not
the impervious surface would be within the limits,
It's okay.
It's like
within code.
it's gone.
Yeah.
All right.
Any other questions for Mr. Riggs?
I think so.
Not at this time.
All right, so I'll ask the appellant to come forward and provide
No lot coverage.
us with information.
Hello.
And
John Bryan, 62 Lane Road. Yes, I'm back again, for those who weren't here before. It's a very strange lot. As I say in my piece here, it is a seven-sided irregular heptagon. It is not, there is no gravel on it. That's just mud. So there was a tree there, and I had it removed.
Yeah,
And now there's just an open space, and I'd like to
right there.
pave it such that the turnaround process is straightforward. Otherwise, I'm backing in or backing out. And so the idea here is that I'm asking for an exemption from being in between the right-of-way and my structure. There's a building between the right-of-way and my structure. So if the objective of the city is to not see cars in front of houses, you can't see it from the road. You can't see it from any road. So the concern about visibility of a car in front of a house really isn't there, because you'd have to take out the house to see it, and I don't think that's going to happen. So there's no other place really on the property. There is no side yard. There is no backyard. There's just that little bit of a yard. And I'd like to be able to use it. So that, you know, in terms of all the issues, it's a safety concern to back in or back out. There is no particular use for that space other than for my ability to turn around, which I would like to have. And I think that's similar to what other people in the neighborhood have. There are a lot of unusual situations there where people have built up on high spots, and they have parking at various points on the hillside. So that's what I have. And if you have questions, I'd be delighted to answer them.
So is what you're proposing to do to pave an area for parking, pour concrete, or what is it exactly that you're, like, what are you constructing?
Pad.
So like a concrete pad?
Concrete pad,
Yeah.
textured ideally to match another section of the driveway that is textured.
But it was a tree there originally, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
A big tree.
Big
Yeah,
tree.
it looks very large on the aerials. How wide is the existing driveway?
The driveway itself,
Yeah,
It's
do you
right here. So you have
it's in the,
driveway.
it's on the drawing. I guess I can look at it here too.
didn't see it. I'm sorry if I missed that.
His yard is basically there.
It's quite
He
long.
wants to be able to park here.
Here, turn around
Most
here
definitely
in front of the house.
The issue is a shared driveway, so.
Is it actually shared?
It's sort of an interesting shared driveway.
Yeah.
It's, the property line goes down part of the driveway.
Okay.
That's helpful.
So
Okay.
For you.
you'll hear from my neighbors, I'm sure. But yeah, it's you know, the pens are in the driveway.
So, yeah, he wants to put.
So it's an odd
So we can go right.
house
That's my understanding.
arrangement.
Yeah. Which
The property is
house layout.
strangely laid out, and I'm just asking to use some of it so I can turn around. Other questions? And that really is the issue, is that it's not visible to the street, so the intent of the code is met, I think.
Any other questions?
Now, I was wondering where the space came from.
Is that, that's?
No, that's
yeah.
the house in front of his property.
So that's the neighbor's house.
Okay.
All right. Yep.
Yeah, so that's the backyard of that house.
Thank you.
Thank
We'll
you.
bring it back up if we need.
Sure.
So is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of this request? Anyone wishing to speak in general comment about this request or in opposition to this request? Please come forward, identify yourself and your address, please.
My name is Alan Goldsberry. I live at 20 North May Avenue. I think I met all of you before, and I'd known Aaron already for years.
Most of us.
My wife Stephanie is with me. She's not going to speak or say anything. And Carolyn Gosnell is seated next to Stephanie. Carolyn lives in 22 Lane, which is in front of the subject property. As somebody said on the board here, we were here just a few weeks ago. The subject at that time was a fence and setback requirements. You heard me out on that, and you made your decision. I did spend a few minutes, which was suggested maybe I shouldn't have, but explaining to you that this was a part of the second old cable subdivision. These two houses were built before Athens had a zoning code. And I also mentioned that they were built by two women who were very, very close friends. They were both fellow professors. And today, the Code Office and Planning Commission would never permit such an arrangement, but it happened. And they created, I don't think of that driveway as shared, but I don't take exception to that. It's an easement back to the larger of the two houses. A few years ago, my wife and I sold our home to our son, who needed a big house for his children and all, and we moved there. And we wanted two comfortable R1 homes. We were concerned about parking. Since then, the neighborhood has changed somewhat. For example, within the block, one block in front of me on May, there are 3 Airbnbs, which are in one-family homes. And there's no little parking. There's some parking, but little parking. I think a very bad arrangement. On the other hand, this is just a personal opinion, but you can look all around town in residential zones, and you can find many homes that have stacked parking with students stacked in there. The pending application I'm here about is, to me, somewhat confusing. I am not sure it is designed to provide a space to park cars, and if so, this is a parking pad request. Or is it a request to create a turnaround? If it were a request for a turnaround, I might not have objection to it. And you might not remember this, but the last time I was here, I commended the current owner of the subject property for removing that huge tree that was in his front yard. And I pointed out he did himself a service, but he did people in back of him, beside him, and in front of him a service, because that big tree parts of it could have fallen on any of those homes. Well, I guess the point is, that big tree was there for many, many years. And people drove into the house that's the subject here and parked in on the parking patio, and they left and went out on a rather wide easement driveway without a problem. However, what troubles me is there's a statement in the application that the current owner intends to build this parking place, and he says he's going to put it right up to the property line. I interpret that to mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I interpret that to mean the line behind 22 Lane. And that's like 3 feet or 4 feet from the wall, the back of that little house. And by the way, that little house also has a carport. Those houses were built in the day when families had 1 car. Today they have 3 or 4. But in any event, I'm sure that what is planning to be built here is going to, the concreting is going to start on that line. Well, to me, that creates a detriment to my property. And the reason, my wife's property, the reason I view it as a detriment is because right above that line are the 2 windows in the back, in the back of our little house there on 2 Lane, where Miss Gosnell lives, and she rents from us. And I believe it's going to be a big parking pad, and I think we're talking about more than one car, and there's nothing said about lighting, but my guess is there's going to be some kind of lighting back there, and that's going to make our little house, which we rent out now, less attractive to future tenants. And so to me, that's a detriment. The other argument I would make with respect to the merits is that it is not the minimum variance. As I said, if it were just adequate to back your car around, which apparently hasn't been a problem for like 3 or 4 owners who were there before who had cars, if that were all we were talking about here, I don't think as much square footage as is talked about is necessary here. And there's always been a front yard there. There's always been grass there, and that's what we think of as a R1 home. Now, it is true that the front yard doesn't face on a street. It faces in the back of this little house, which was the professor's best friend who lived there. But anybody that lives there in the future is going to have a parking lot would be to say too much, but it will at least park 2 cars there, plus the one in the parking, on the parking pad that's adjacent to the house or built onto the house. I have no idea what the applicant's intention might be in the future. And I cannot prove that this, what I view a detriment to my property, would have an effect on market value. The applicant here could argue, oh, it increases your market value because now I can have an Airbnb behind you and you can have student parking there. I don't have students living there now, but and it would make your house even more valuable. But we didn't buy it for that purpose and we don't use it for that purpose. And he may not have any intentions of ever turning it into a student rental or an Airbnb. He may have every intention of just living there permanently. But that doesn't change anything because that, that status could change at any moment. He could sell the property. I think that the way he has designed it is not the minimum way to design this to provide a turnaround, if that's what he's really looking for. But I don't think that's what he's really looking for. I think he's looking to park, or at least be able to park, a couple of cars there. The last time we were here, when we were talking about fence, I thought he was concerned about a garden and a yard there from the comments that I heard at that time.
All right, so are you concluding we need to move on soon here, so can you make some concluding statements?
I would close by just saying,
okay.
Look closely at 2308.01A, and you will see what you're supposed to apply, and you'll consider the 2 arguments that I made, I hope.
So would the appellant like to provide a response?
None.
Additional into opposition? Then you need to approach them. Thank you.
I'm Carolyn Gosnell, and I do live at 22 Lane, renting off Goldsberry's. Not to sound like a broken record or go back to previous case, but I want to make 2 points. I feel that Mr. Brennan has misrepresented on the prior appeal concerning the privacy fence. And like Mr. Goldsberry just stated about, he stated he needed a privacy fence to establish a garden. The only place on his property that is viable for a garden is where he wants to put this concrete pad. The other area in front of the other part of his house is all surrounded by large trees. So I feel, I just needed to say that. And then logistically, if this project goes forward, I want to know how it's going to be achieved. Because there's no way concrete, a big truck can get back there and pour any concrete. I mean, maybe there's other ways to do it, but I have concerns about access in that driveway. Because a couple of years ago, a delivery truck went back through that driveway. Mr. Brennan wasn't living there at the time. They were delivering from appliance or something, and it knocked off the gutter on 22 Lane. So I'm just saying that that could be a distinct possibility on any kind of heavy equipment trying to get access back there where he wants the concrete poured. And Mr. Brennan, since he has lived there, to me, this is my opinion and I need to state it. He has not shown in the past that he cares about any impact on any neighbors. The projects he has undertaken, he has never let myself or the Goldsberries know of his intentions. As far as the tree removal, that was a good thing. I don't have a problem with that. But he never let anybody know, and heavy equipment had to be put on 22 Lane's property in order to achieve the tree being taken down, because they couldn't get back on the driveway where the tree was located. Also, one final point, the current fence that he put up there, again, he never let anybody know. I just looked out one day and a fence was going up. I had a bird bath, a very heavy bird bath, that was given to me by the previous owners of 16 Tulane. I had left it sitting there. It was on his property. I admit to that, but I couldn't move it. It was very heavy, and he hadn't said any problem, hadn't told me about any problem in it being there. When the fence started going up, I went out there and asked him if I could retrieve that, because that was mine. And all he said very rudely to me was, "It's on my property." I was able to get the top of the bird bath back, and I do have it in my possession now, but the base of it that the top sits on, he never did give it back to me. And granted, it was very heavy, is why I never sought to try to move it myself. But when I brought it to his attention, I just feel he was very rude. And that's all I have to say. And I just feel that this concrete project is totally inappropriate. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in opposition? All right, so we'll give the appellant an opportunity to speak. Please keep it as brief as you can, though.
I will. These are interesting characterizations which I don't agree with in many respects, and not germane. The question is, am I in violation of code if I put in a pad? Turnaround, parking, whatever. The history is interesting, but not germane. So there are clearly some neighborly conflicts here and some notion that I'm supposed to get permission before I do things in the neighborhood. I'm doing this all on my property, and I'm trying to comply with the rules. Got permission for the fence, trying to get permission for the pad. I'm not going to get into the ways in which I disagree with the things that have been said and the characterization of me as this person has chosen to do, or these people have chosen to do. I don't understand. So my focus is to comply and this turnaround pad is certainly going to be obscured from the right-of-way, and that's what the rule is about. So, thank you.
So one question is, I'm curious, how far from the building would the pad be? Are there pins, I see pins in the ground in the photo.
Yep.
Is that the outline of where the pad is going to be?
That's the property line.
Okay, well, there's some
I
back
don't know
along.
what your picture is. You've got.
This photo.
Yeah.
The stakes in the ground.
Stakes in the ground. I put those in when it was icy and snowing so that I could go in and out without being on their property. I don't want to run into their property. They've got their shrubbery there that's
So,
theirs.
so it's a couple feet from the
It's
building
about 2-3
to the
feet, I
property line?
guess, something like that. It's the property line.
I think that's, neighbor said 3 feet as well, so.
Yeah, it's
Just trying to confirm.
like. Anything else?
Any other questions?
I have one question. So one of the criteria that we have to look at is a minimum variance, and so it looks like the pad that you're proposing is about I think it was 19 by 20 feet.
It's the area, and Stolf's family contract, I think they're builders, I don't know what their designation
Concrete
is.
foundations,
Yeah,
Have come out and looked at it and said they can do it.
sure. And so I mean, maybe that is the minimum variance. I mean, a typical maybe parking space is maybe 10 by 20 feet, something along there, but you're using it as a turnaround, so maybe that's a little bit wider. So
Right.
I'm just like wondering if you could can speak to are those dimensions kind of the minimum variance, or how is that footprint kind of determined?
As a practical matter, I'm going to come down the driveway, pull in, and then back around and be able to put my car in the
Okay.
carport.
Okay.
And that carport's an add-on. That's not part of the original house. There probably was a turnaround there at one point.
So it's a carport.
I think my question was the same as Shay's, which is, as far as I can see, for like specifications for like turnarounds and other things of the nature that you're asking for, they're about half the size of a pad, and we have a requirement to assess whether something is a minimum variance or not. And so the question is whether the pad is the minimum variance request or not. From a size perspective, I think is what Shay and I are wondering.
Okay, as far as I know.
Does that make sense though?
Well, yeah, if it was, but the code office didn't have any concerns about that, as far as I can tell. Their only concerns seem to be
Parked in front of the structure.
for of a structure, and there is a structure that I'm parking in front of if I do this, or turning around on, but it's obscure.
Well, the minimum variance isn't the code office's concern. That's our concern as a board. So that's one of the criteria
okay.
that we have to evaluate against. Is this a minimum variance request? And so I think that is a little bit of a question still.
I have no idea of
Sure.
whether that would violate code. That's out of my scope. I don't know.
And I guess before you sit down, maybe, Mr. Riggs, I don't think there's any kind of setback requirements for a concrete pad, or is there, or what? There's none. Okay. So we can go right to the property line. Okay.
The property line of the property, but since the neighbors is close, is it like a fine line just because this is a weird property that?
Code really doesn't address
Okay,
that.
all right.
So it's, yeah.
That was my question about structure. Is it in front of 16 two-lane, or is it the back of 20 two-lane? Just
I think those are the same thing.
I don't want to make stuff difficult. I'm just
Working on it.
looking at structure. What structure? Okay.
All right, any other questions for the appellant?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you. So I will now close the floor and we'll deliberate. Any discussion before we go into the questions?
Just the space has been a tree for 100 years. Now it's a space. So that's, I mean, it's,
I did find the notes on the width of the driveway, and it looks like it's almost 13 feet, 12.7 is what I think it says, or 12 feet 7 inches. Most driveway recommendations are 10 to 12 feet, so it's
Pretty wide.
It's not a super tight driveway, it doesn't appear. As far as backing in and out.
Yeah, this made me think about that, the case that we had on East State Street.
the turnaround for the
The
house.
same, like, turnaround, yeah, where they had the really
Steep driveway.
steep driveway that was difficult to pull onto East State Street, and so they were asking to pour concrete and make a turnaround.
So they was parking on a hill, bagging out, but they wanted
So
to turn
there
around.
were special circumstances,
Yes.
extenuating
Yeah, I
circumstances
think
in that
in that
case.
scenario, it was a arterial road that they were also backing into, and it was a
Arterial road.
high
Yeah.
angle and
Steep
also,
terrain, narrow driveway.
Yeah.
But this is currently dirt and mud from the previous tree, and in this form, they're not allowed to park on that technically because it's in front of a home.
That's correct, yes.
This is one of the things we talked about last time, but it's as far as impacting neighboring properties, it's in the rear yard of the property in front, and it's in the side yard. Well, actually, I don't think it would even be in the side yard of the adjacent property, but it's essentially in the rear yard of the 22 lane, I believe it is.
But they don't have a rear yard.
There.
Yeah.
It's a house.
Well, there's 2 or 3 feet, right? Okay, so are there exceptional circumstances?
I mean, I think this is definitely an exceptional lot
Lot,
layout.
yeah, the lot is.
The lot is, but I'm not sure, like you were describing, the driveway situation, is it exceptional? Is there
It's
a
wide
reason, exceptional reason justifying this? I'm not certain.
Well, I think it's that, the code in question is about, parking spaces in front of structures, and this doesn't, it's not really that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think,
Yeah.
So you can't see it from the street.
Yeah.
right, it's behind the foremost structure. It's just because of how the, exceptional layout is that it does, classify it in this way as like being in front of the primary structure.
It's a weird angle on the exceptional circumstances, though, but, yeah.
Well, and typically, if you would have a driveway and you would pull in for your parking and you would be backing out onto a street, you would typically be, you would be backing, maybe a little bit more than the depth of your car, but like in this case, you're backing the full width of a property. So I think that's kind of an exceptional circumstance. Like you're not typically, if you had that parking, kind of in your front yard, in a driveway or in front of a garage, you're not going to be backing 60 feet or however long this distance is to get, to do the same kind of.
Shay, I will say that this is exactly the same size and length as my driveway. In fact, my driveway is narrower.
I was going to say, I was saying that, and I know
I'm skeptical on that one.
And
but-
mine too.
there are, yeah, and that is true. There are garages that are kind of
I
oriented like
think
that.
it's
So
pretty
maybe
common, actually,
maybe
for
that's
this
not,
layout.
maybe for this neighborhood or
For that part of the neighborhood, it is. It's-
Well, I'd say actually for that section of the east side, it's actually less common because the lots aren't quite as, they're wider, right? And they're more ranch style houses, which tend to have an attached garage, so
Yeah.
driveways are shorter there, but.
My neighborhood got short driveways.
So is there practical difficulty and undue hardship?
I think the tree being gone kind of helped out the situation of turning around.
So literal enforcement of these regulations will result in practical difficulty or undue hardship that is unnecessary to the achievement of public purposes. I think the appellant made a case that that's, that the public purpose for the code doesn't really apply in this case.
Yeah, I feel like these are kind of hard to answer because to get to the point of the variance is the fact that they're asking to park in front of the house, which in my opinion, doesn't really concern me because there's a house in front of it. So like the intent of the code is kind of obsolete in this case just because of the nature of the lot and the configuration of the lot. But like the actual need for it due to like the width and the length of the driveway and like the surrounding case around all the other points that we're making, I don't know that there is a case for that. But
there is other places to park. It's not,
yeah, that's not. But also the question isn't, should they have a place to turn around, or like do they have exceptional circumstances to pour the concrete? It's whether they're allowed to have a parking space in front of the building.
Which is in the rear of the other building. That's
Yeah.
correct. See, that's the issue we run into on the far east side because some of the streets don't have, there's no curb, so you gotta park off the street.
All right, how about preservation of equal property rights?
I think this is,
We throw a lot of this,
like-
I mean, a lot of these don't really apply because the situation is
Yeah.
weird.
And I think actually the carport is on the other houses on the front of it. Like, yeah, so there's somebody parking more visibly to the street probably already. So I don't, yeah.
Minimum variance, so we discussed that a little.
Yeah, I think this is a hard one. I don't feel like it's a minimum request, but
It seems large for the need, but is that within the purview of what we should be considering? I guess somewhat. But could we ask the appellant to, does it have to be this big and set a size that's smaller and grant him a variance for that? Is that going beyond what we should be doing here? I'm not certain.
I don't know if that's even within the variance.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we give him the variance, I think he can probably build whatever size he wants.
Well, within the impervious surface restriction.
Right, yeah, I mean, with the rest of the code,
Which
I don't
is-
think we have control over that. I don't,
Okay.
and so it's this, it's a difficult thing where I don't think it's the minimum, or
So-
probably absence of detriment to the neighbor because it's going right up to the line, and that's, nobody wants to live in a concrete, covered,
Yeah.
carpeted
So that gets to
landscape,
the next
right?
question maybe, but, so for this one, Director Riggs, it sounds like there's really nothing in here that we could say, well, we don't feel this is minimum variance, we've set a variance here that is for a smaller pad size. Is that something that
The
even
board
makes?
has the right to set conditions on any variance that they want, and those conditions
Okay.
can be whatever you choose.
But tonight, the main case was to allow just even a parking pad in front of the,
So we could allow that pad with a condition.
with the conditions. Okay.
So if a minimum variance is allowing space for a turnaround, I guess Director Riggs, would he even need a variance to be able to use that space as a turnaround, or is it specifically for the parking that he needs the variance for?
As a turnaround, no. If it was going to park a vehicle on it, you would need a variance for that. And that's what it was refused for, was because they were having parking in the front of the house, not in front of the garage.
Because currently you cannot park on that dirt,
Correct.
but if it's a pad, then it's considered parking.
Yep.
All right, absence of detriment.
I mean, I think because of the configuration of the exceptionally tightly abutting properties, from a viewscape standpoint and walk out your door standpoint, it's a detriment to the neighbor. I'm not sure it's a significant one or one that isn't,
There's an impact for sure.
there's an impact, right? Yeah.
So, question for Director Riggs, even with the pad, it will have to stop X amount of feet. There is a gap, a minimum between the rear of the house and the pad, correct? Or no,
there's not- we don't consider a parking area to be a structure. So you could put a parking lot right up to the property line, no setback requirements.
And it says his intention is to go right to the property line.
Yeah.
It seems like a yes.
And the property line is the 22 lane.
Which is 2 or 3 feet from
Two or
the,
three
it's like-
feet, yeah,
it's
right,
like-
yeah.
There's the property line.
Yeah.
You know what it's going to intend is to go right to there. But the structure, the house is actually like here.
So it's 2 feet, 3 feet
Yeah.
difference.
Yeah, you can see it on the,
Yeah.
like, house, property line.
That's what I was just thinking about that with the minimum, if we did put a requirement on how big the pad can be.
Yeah, if the detriment is by being close to the other house,
Yes.
we would have to additionally add some sort of setback, requirement. Otherwise, he has
The right
full
setback
freedom
house.
to locate it within the property wherever he wants, obviously.
anything else on absence of detriment? Not of a general nature? Yeah, I don't think we're having that problem here. All right, any other discussion before we make a motion? So, conditions is something that's potential here, I guess, but I'm not sure if somebody feels strongly about that, enough to make a motion with conditions, or if we just want to make a motion for the, what's been asked for.
Is Shay allowed to bring motions?
I don't believe so.
Because he's not a full acting member. I just didn't know if he was allowed to bring a motion, but not vote on
He
it.
can participate in the discussion and comment and stuff.
Well, I think one thing I'll add is that, so, I mean, a parking stall, I believe, actually, Director Riggs, maybe you can clarify, the city, not that this necessarily matters, but I think the city minimum parking dimensions is like 9 foot by 18 feet or something like that?
It used to be, they've changed that, it's now just 150 square feet.
Okay.
We don't have lengths and widths anymore.
So it's about, but a typical parking, like a lot of codes typically define it somewhere between 9 by 18 and 10 by 20 for a 90-degree parking stall. But in this case, you would be doing a right turn, 90-degree turn, so you would have a radius of some sort. But otherwise, besides a radius to actually turn into a parking stall, this is basically 2 parking stalls, in front of his house.
Yeah, this is 380 square.
So the 150 square feet, so 10 by 15 would be
That
sufficient
would be
for
a
one parking
parallel
space.
parking, angle parking would be more.
Yeah, so certainly there's enough room to park 2 cars for sure
Yeah.
on this pad that's proposed.
But we're not looking at the minimum variance, so that's,
So is somebody thinking about a motion here?
we can add the dimensions if can we put that inside?
It might be appropriate, let me read the section of the code that talks about the variance and conditions. If you look at powers of board appellate jurisdiction, which is 230703B variances, subsection number 2, conditions may be attached. In authorizing a variance, the BZA may attach such conditions regarding the location, character, and other features of the proposed structure or use it may deem necessary in the interest of furtherance of the purposes of the zoning code and the public interest. So that's the task you're.
And that was a location and
Use.
Other features, location, character, and other features of the proposed structure or use.
So we could say setback from the property line so many feet and that it could only be a certain size. We could set both of those kind of stipulations if determined to do that.
let's see, and then
So if we did a
So
10
I can't
by,
make the motion, it's up to you guys.
It's currently 380 square.
yeah, if we
The one,
did,
the one thing about being the chair is I can't make the motion, so you guys have to be the ones to do the hard work here.
Yeah, no, I'm just trying to look at what the actual,
I don't know how many feet we would want it from the
Yeah,
property line.
And do
Well,
you
I
want to
think
talk about the
it's-
size as
it's-
well, and then the distance from the property line?
be the
well, if we just
minimum setback.
reduce the
also-
width to whatever width we
Like a 10 by
define,
15.
and then we, suggest that the setback is the difference.
So we could also discuss this with the appellant if we want to. See if he's amenable to a change like this. He wants to talk to us, but we don't have to grant that.
Yeah.
But if we want to discuss with him an idea we're proposing before we make a motion, that's possible.
I'm open to that.
Yeah.
Okay?
You're the chair, yeah. Go
Well, I
for it.
come forward. So let's control this conversation, I guess, though. So what do we want to ask? Or just let him talk? What do you want to do?
It's up to you. I don't have a strong opinion personally.
Why don't you say what's on your mind at the moment regarding what we're discussing here, which is potentially restricting what you're allowed to do here?
Okay, my primary use is to pull in and then back out into the garage, into the parking area, carport properly. So it's not just a rectangular thing to hit upon. It's going to have a skirt on both sides. The actual dimensions, I'm not wedded to, but you're talking about doing a setback. If you look at the picture, and you'll see that there's a structure there with windows up high. By the way, that was privacy, but now it's not. That was the last time. That was the fence where it was privacy, was their windows are so high. Anyhow, what do we have right there? We have a little strip of their property, and now you're proposing that we add another little strip of non-usable property, something else for me to mow. I don't know what the upside on this is, why they're concerned about the back end of a structure that they're never going to step outside to see. They've got to go down the driveway to come to see. So I'm willing to make some accommodation, but what's the point? If I'm back from my property line a foot, 2 foot, 3 foot, it's still my property. I still got to maintain it. And if I want to, have it as a space that I can safely turn around in, fine. But if you're going to say that we got to do that, I want to put this in. It's a drag to go pull into the mud and then get stuck. I've done that, and then back out. And it's not easy to back in and back out of that place. It's a fairly long driveway, and it is fairly narrow. So anyhow, I wanted to say I'm flexible with it, but what are we getting?
I guess, so, Director Riggs, correct me if I'm wrong. I thought before you said, if you just poured concrete here and use this, as you're saying, as a turnaround, that's allowed. But because you want to park and you're calling it a parking event, it's not allowed because you're parking in front of the structure. But you're saying to us that you're only using it as a turnaround.
Currently, that's the case. Could someone stop over? That doesn't happen. And park there? That'd be swell. But I don't see the real difference between putting down concrete, if you call it a pad, or you call it a parking lot, or a turnaround, or
I guess I'm mostly asking from our perspective. He could pour concrete up into his property line and do whatever he wants. He could make that a patio and put furniture there if he wants to. The amount of concrete and the size that he does, I don't know that is really that impactful. It's really, the question is, are we allowing him to park there or not?
And can you see it?
From the street.
Yeah.
From the street, and you can. So that's what I wanted to say. If you're going to insist that I, back 2-3 feet, whatever, and I can still do the turnaround's the main thing. But it's mine. Why can't I use it? So if you want to talk about a setback, we'll talk about it, but it doesn't seem like it's meeting the requirements. Any other questions, comments?
It's, the question was, can you park in front of the house and not see it from the street?
So do we
That's
call for an up or
basically-
down vote on the proposal and not try and put conditions? Sounds like maybe.
I would be in favor of that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So I think
He volunteered for the motion.
my thought related to this is that if he's building a patio, like it's going to be a patio, and this is like.
Mr. Chairman, not allowed rebuttal, is that correct?
No, not, thank you.
And he's not building, I mean, he's asking to use it as parking. And so
Right.
we as a board have to decide, and based on the dimensions, we've established it can fit two cars there. Like, are
There's two
we
straight
okay
parking
with
spaces.
2 cars parking in this location in front of a building, or do we not care because of the weird structure of the lot?
Yeah,
And you
and
can't see
I
it.
would say that I do have a problem with the 2 cars. I don't have a problem with the single car turnaround. From what I
Yeah.
can tell of this, so I'm in favor of restricting it to a single car size. Probably I would say, a reasonably sized version of that. So maybe like a 14-foot pad, 14 by 20. 14 deep or 20 deep by 14 wide, and a additional 5-foot setback from the property line. That would be my proposal.
Couldn't an alternative be to grant a variance for him to park 1 car in front of and not restrict the size?
Yeah, I think that feels like it more aligns with what the actual variance request is, because technically he can pour as much concrete as he wants
Right.
and then only be able to park a car in that amount of space. Like, that doesn't, I don't think that really gets to what the
Well, I think from the
what the
code,
actual discrepancy in the code is, though.
I think from the code section that Director Riggs read, it's like the goal is to, if there is going to be a detriment from granting this variance, that we add conditions to mitigate that detriment. And so we may or may not agree on whether that does it, but I think that's the.
I think the minimum variance thing, because this is not about asking, can I do a patio or something else like that? He's asking specifically for a turnaround and parking. So, well, this is much larger than is necessary for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think we get to,
So
for
it's
1 car.
A 14 by 20 would be 280 square.
still large, but it's not something
It's not
you can park
400.
2 cars on, or at least not easily. So the idea then would help mitigate both the minimum variance and an absence of detriment.
Yeah, I mean that's my thought. We can also specify that that's 1 car. I don't know if that.
It's 14 by 20.
It's not about the numbers of cars, I don't think, right?
No.
Or we can just do a straight up and down. But
Up to you guys.
I'm open to.
I'm open to the stipulations, 14 by 20. I think that's
I think it makes my decision easier.
Yeah, I'm open to it.
I can let me pull this up, see if I can.
be 280. I mean, if we just do 280 square feet.
I think I would say in this case 14 wide by 20 deep.
And do you want to add the setback so you determine where the location as well?
Yep.
His original size was
19 wide by 20 deep.
Yeah, 19 wide was, that will get us to, I got my calculator out. That will be 380, so 19 by 20 was 380 square
I
feet.
got it. Okay. Let me just pull up the actual case number so I can make a motion. Got to scroll for a while. Hold on.
I can put in different shapes.
Can you put a irregular heptagon?
Trapezoid. You put a trapezoid.
Okay. I move that for case 25-05V, located at 16 Tulane Road, we approve a variance from ACC 23.08.01 A, to allow parking in front of a structure with the condition that that parking space is 20 feet deep by 14 wide or smaller and is set back by 5 feet from the front line of the property abutting 22 Lane.
Second.
Yeah, sorry.
I said second at the same time.
For one car. Is that
You don't have to add
You
in
don't
that
have to say that
stipulation.
because we can't stipulate that in this case.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
with the
yeah,
size,
yeah,
we can't
correct.
stipulate
They
it.
put the size in there, though.
the size, yeah.
Any discussion before we vote? All right, call for a vote. All those in favor of this motion to approve this variance with conditions, raise your hand. All right, so you have your variance with conditions.
And we have that in the minutes, right? That's the 280 square, okay.
This is being recorded, so
Yes.
fortunately somebody on staff can watch the recording and get all the details. Okay.
Make a note.
Case number 25-06V at 50 Central Avenue. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.03.11A1 to allow a 1-foot setback where 5 feet is required. Mr. Riggs.
Yes, sir. 230311, accessory structures specifically states that no structure shall be located closer than 5 feet to the side and rear lot lines. The appellant is requesting a structure to be placed 1 foot back from the property line on this property.
And this is to replace an existing structure that is also 1 foot back, but is grandfathered?
So there was a structure here at one time. Again, it's kind of irrelevant because that structure was removed. And once it's removed, then
It's no longer grandfathered.
it's no longer grandfathered, so it's kind
And even if it was still there, it couldn't be replaced and continue its,
of, yeah, you couldn't, yes. correct.
you'd have to fix it or improve it
Yep.
to keep the grandfathering status.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I see another shed in the picture. Is that shed still there? It's on the other property line. Wooden shed.
Is that, I thought that was the shed in question.
Is that the shed in question?
This is,
No, they said
this is
it's
not the
still
shed in question?
They just know it.
Oh, okay, sorry, I was looking at my picture is not.
New shed.
So this picture, Mr. Riggs,
Yeah, there was a shed, and that one's been removed.
it's been removed, okay. So that's not really part of the equation then, I
So
guess.
this is the one that's been removed, is it?
No, that's still there.
That's still there, okay.
Oh, hold it, so
The
this
one
other-
that's in the photo is still there.
This one is still there?
Yes.
Okay.
Where they're proposing
There used
a
to be
new
one
one,
here.
there was an additional one.
Okay.
There were two, they're asking to put a second one back in.
Thank you.
Gotcha.
The fence is this owner's fence, is that right? Or is it the adjacent property's fence? It looks like it's this property owner's fence.
I don't know the
You
answer.
can usually tell, it depends on where the posts are. You can tell
Yeah,
who
the
put
posts are
fence-
on the
yeah.
inside. Mhm.
So usually it'd be on the outside if it was.
It looks like it's
on that.
continuous, so it
Yeah.
seems like this fence is this property owner's fence.
I didn't see in any of the case documentation of a layout on the property. Is that?
I don't see that as well. Okay.
So lay it
What's the
on the
required
property.
setback?
Sorry?
It's
feet.
5 feet, the required setback?
5 feet is the side and rear setback for a accessory structure.
It looks like behind is a rental property. That probably ultimately matters, but
Oh, maybe that's the location of everybody. Because it's like a marked up on the image, so it's probably
Okay, that makes sense.
1 foot to.
all right, anything else, Mr. Riggs?
No, sir.
Okay, so we'd like to invite the appellant to come forward and state a case, help us make a decision.
Hello, my name is Jody Barnes. I live at 50 Central Avenue. I co-own the house with my partner Megan Almeida. We inherited a lot of wood rot when we bought the house in July. We're trying to enhance our yard and beautify the neighborhood. The existing shed that's on there, which we just recently found out, doesn't have a variance either. So there's no grandfather to fix that one up. It has a rotting floor. The fence on that side of the yard is rotting and it's fallen over. And you can see I got pictures, you can zoom in. Sorry, I'm nervous. If you'd like to see, I got it rigged up so it doesn't fall in the neighbor's garage. So we want to build a new shed, and we want to dismantle and donate this shed to somebody. In order to store our stuff, we have to build this first shed first. Our yard isn't very big. If we would do 5 feet from the fence line, we would end up they wouldn't have a yard.
Yeah.
Basically. So that's why the request, and the fence is ours, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So are you saying that after this one is built, if we grant the variance, will you have 2 sheds or just one shed?
No, we're going to donate the other shed.
Okay,
The
so you
person
tore
who-
one down. There's one remaining,
We
but
never tore any shed down. That was
Oh.
raised beds in the picture that you saw. I had wooden raised beds there, but far as I know, the lady we bought the house off of, that we rented out of 14 years there hasn't been a shed there.
Okay.
She bought it in the 90s, I think, so maybe there was before that.
Okay. Okay, got it.
So the shed in the picture is the shed that is in question.
Rotting,
And it's
and that
rotting.
fence.
That's
That
gonna
you're
be
hop-
torn
that you're
down.
hoping to
Yeah, in
replace.
order to get to that fence, because I got it rigged up right now, and every windstorm, I pray, oh God, it doesn't fall over on the neighbor's garage. In order to get to that, I have to move that shed, because there's 2 posts back there that need replaced, and the fence is also connected to the shed.
Yeah.
It's a messed up
It
situation.
seems as though even if the other shed were replaced, it's still probably a 1-foot setback or something similar.
Yeah, it's not even 1 foot. It's actually, I measured it's like half a foot. It's like right on the fence line, which is probably contributing to most of the rot. And the shed, way it's in the hillside, they have one side on bricks and the other side just laying in the dirt. So it's inevitable.
The water
And
just
I
running
rented
down the
for
hill.
14 years, couldn't do anything about it, but now we own it. And we just want to, it's a nice neighborhood. We want to beautify it a little bit more.
All right, any questions for the appellant? Other questions?
Thank you.
Thanks. So is there anyone that would like to speak in support of this that's present? Anyone to speak in general comment? Anyone opposed to this? All right, so I'll close the floor and the board will deliberate. So my sort of take on this is the setback, I don't think is a big issue because of the fence.
Yeah, agreed.
Sorry there.
Yeah, the shed is going to be probably about the height of the fence, I would guess, and so it really isn't changing anything to put a shed there within a foot of the fence.
Yeah. And I mean, it's kind of a better situation. I mean, it's sort of a better situation than what they already have, both in the setback and then also in the condition of the shed. It will be better.
Yeah, I mean, the shed that they're proposing is 8 feet tall, so it's like, might
little
poke over,
taller.
might just poke over
Foot
the
over.
fence a little bit, but
Yeah.
not, it's at 7 feet in the back.
And it's on a hill, so.
Yeah.
All right, so are there exceptional circumstances? Yeah, the terrain, the size of the backyard,
Yeah, the size of the
the
yard.
location of the existing raised beds. Practical difficulty and undue hardship.
It's been there for 30
Yeah,
years.
I mean, I think that they mentioned that they don't have a garage, right, or any other kind of like outdoor storage area.
Yeah.
So this is like kind of
Hence
their
why
only-
they need to keep the other shed in
Right.
place.
Don't have a
until they build
garden.
new one.
New.
If the option is garden or shed, so that you can store tools for your garden. Right?
And they couldn't just replace the current shed anyway.
Yeah.
It's non-conforming, right?
It's not conforming.
Yeah.
And perhaps also likely contributing to the deterioration of the fence.
Yeah.
And probably, as you mentioned, like downhill, probably not the best place to put the shed.
I think that location would have be more likely to impact a neighboring property than where they're proposing it.
Yeah.
So this seems like a big improvement over what's
Yeah.
there.
Preservation of equal property rights. I don't know if we have data on other sheds on property lines, but it's pretty common
Yeah.
in the Near East
I
Side
know that
neighborhood.
Even in this
there
yard.
are other sheds.
There's a bunch of shit.
People have sheds.
Minimum variance, I think because of the fence, it's really not so much an issue here.
Yeah. And I mean, honestly, they could put it right up against the fence, like it is existing. I do think this is minimum, like 1 foot is.
Sorry there.
I think like 1 foot usually allows enough space for that area to kind of dry out.
Yeah.
When you're not like wasting. Big issue when you have, which is possibly what they're dealing with the other shed, is that you have a shed right up to a fence. You get water back there, it doesn't dry out. You get rot. You destroy your fence, destroy your shed. You can cause damage to neighboring properties. So I think as long as they have gutters on this and are managing stormwater, then like a 1 foot setback feels like that's a good setback to allow.
Yeah.
To not, to kind of not contribute to those types of issues that are pretty common.
And isn't the city talking a lot more about changing some of these setback rules?
Yes.
They did, and they reduced some of them, but
Yeah.
this is pretty close to the property line,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
within that restriction.
Yeah, I think five is the reduced number.
The reduced number.
Absence of detriment, we haven't heard anybody here. The property behind is a rental, so it's not likely the renter would probably know or show up to something like this. But as we discussed, it seems like because the fence is already there, 6 feet tall,
There's already a shed.
the shed
experienced.
might peek over a little bit, but I don't think there's really any detriment to the neighbor,
Yeah.
and not of a general nature. No, I don't think we have to deal with that here either. Would someone like to propose a motion?
I can propose the motion.
Oh, thank you.
I was going to say, we can give Ben a break.
If I can find a piece of paper. I'd like to propose a motion to grant a variance from, at 50 Central Avenue from ACC 23.03.11 A1 to allow a 1 foot setback where 5 foot is required.
I'll second that.
Okay. Any discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, we have 5-0, so you have your variance. Our next case is number 25-07V at 43 to 45 South Court Street. Appellant is requesting a variance from ACC 23.10, Table B, to allow 0 parking spaces where 8 are required. This is one of our favorite topics.
That's where this came up already tonight.
Thank you.
That's all right. Thank you.
Oh, shit.
Nice. All right, Mr. Riggs, can you give us your brief of the case?
Yeah, thank you.
Before we let you speak, we have to get the rundown.
Last but not least, 4345 South Court. This is in a B2D zone uptown. They're actually improving a couple buildings, putting apartments in. There are a couple things here. The appellant, I believe, is looking at maybe proposing some off-site parking, but in section D of 230801 off-site parking, that off-street parking has to be within 1,000 feet of the use, and I think where they're proposing to put it is not. It's more than 1,000 feet away, and it says 8 spaces are required. There's also another section, exemptions, that allow 50% reduction in this is 230806, a 50% reduction in B2B uptown business zone, residential use, 1 or 2 bedroom housing units. So they could get by with as few as 4 off-site parking spaces in this case.
So there's a lot of rooms on this drawing. Not yet. We're still talking with Mr. Riggs. Just, why don't you take a seat just for a minute, so then we don't have to worry about this. So there's a lot of rooms here. What changes are happening that are driving this?
Yeah, I don't think this is being, hasn't been used. I think this is
commercial
yeah,
before.
Yeah, it's on the 2nd floor.
Yeah, it was the
It used to
women's
be
center.
offices.
It's like a women's center up
It was
there.
the Pregnancy Resource Center.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. And they're converting those to apartments.
And so there's a lot of stuff here.
Yes.
So this is,
It's like 4 apartments and 2 bedrooms each.
yeah. So that 4 apartments, 2 bedrooms each, 8, hence that number we've arrived at.
Parking space,
Okay.
yeah.
It looks like more than that, just it's hard to tell.
What's because they all just say room.
Yeah, it's not all bedrooms.
It's kind of unfair.
Yeah, not all bedrooms,
More
right?
than 2 bathrooms.
A4? A4 got a better layout.
Oh, this is okay.
See, that's what I'm looking at. That's what I'm looking at.
That does help.
That helps them.
No, but
Oh, is this,
existing A4.
Oh,
That's what we're looking at.
Yeah, existing or something.
So
Helps to
you can see the
read
entrance.
sometimes.
You can see the entrance from Court Street, from the 45 to 43, up the stairs, down the central hallway. Because it's going to go straight down the central hallway, then it's split between the 2 sides of the...
interesting.
Yeah.
I seen it. I can tell.
Oh, there's
It's
gonna be
creepy.
windows.
So then all 4 units are all new apartment space.
Got it. Okay.
It's good. Good addition to Uptown.
Now, is it going to have any overhang over the alleyway at all? Like the, is one of the buildings got the pieces come over? All right.
I think they will have a balcony in
We'll get to that in a
front,
second.
but,
Looks like there's.
Okay.
I don't think they're gonna have any in the back. I don't think it'll be expanded back there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so any more questions from Mr. Riggs? We can always come back to him. So let's ask the appellant to come forward and state his case and make sure you identify yourself.
Okay, I'm Richard Schultz, I'm a local architect. These are my clients, Best of Athens, that owns this property. And so the A3 sheet is the existing, and like you said, it was the pregnancy center. The other center are still laid out as apartments. And so they're still, in, as far as the state's concerned on the building permit, there's still an existing use there on one side. A4 is the proposed unit. And they do have a balcony for the unit on 43, and they do have balconies, David,
So
in the rear.
that's what I was looking at, the overhang in the alley.
And they own the alley, right. So just the purpose of this is to show these are upgraded apartments. They have good facilities. Court Street obviously is a popular place to be if you're a student. And so the issue before us is really parking.
So when 43 and 48 is above Cross Court and Ohio is home, correct? So the alley you're speaking of is behind?
Is behind over towards Starbucks. The alley is off Union Street.
Okay.
Oh, yes.
It goes to the back
It's
of
a
the
dead
unit.
end alley, it doesn't go through.
No, it doesn't go through, no.
It's not actually an alley. It's a
Yeah.
fire alley, so it's private.
So it's not a city alley.
So behind Goodfellas, in other words, this.
Yeah, there's usually cars parked there.
It's not a public alley.
Kids at 3 a.m. don't believe that.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess the issue is the parking requirements. Do you want to speak to that? What's the situation with your anticipated clients, renters? Are they going to have cars? Do you think they're not going to have cars? Make the pitch to us on why we shouldn't require the parking spaces.
Okay, so we're asking for the parking spaces to be remote on Stimson Avenue.
Okay.
Where Best of Athens has a parking lot with 25 plus cars, 25 to 35 cars. So they would identify spaces there that would belong, 4 spaces that would belong to these units.
And what's the address of that parking?
Behind the houses.
In front of the Louis, house, but there's a parking lot. In front of Jackie O's.
In front of Jackie O's, okay. Thank you.
Got it.
Oh, okay.
Oh, that space, yeah.
Yeah.
4769 Stimson Avenue.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's providing four spots at that location.
Straight line distance is like 3,000 feet, so.
Yeah,
It's a bit.
It's a nice walk. But the city bus does service that, right, from uptown?
Hence why the reduction to 4 is possible, right?
You could use that, but the one we're looking at is that it's 1 and 2 bedrooms and a B2D can be reduced by half. So you could also use that.
So just a B2D allows that kind of
B2D
reduction?
does allow that specific exemption, yes.
Okay.
And are these being targeted at like undergrad students particularly, or is there students?
Anyone who wants to pay the rent.
Undergrad.
They want to pay.
Yeah.
First come, first served.
Yeah,
They're high-end apartments, so, you know.
That's a
Be a good location.
That's the age-old question with parking uptown. But things been changing over the past few years to kind of get rid of that because of, it used to be like you had to have, 2 spots for every bed or something like that?
For the first, a unit had to have 2 minimum, and then
Yes.
every extra bedroom you added another. So the requirement previously would have been 12 for this. So 8 is the reduced based on the code change, and then further reduction based on the other.
So is the biggest issue here the distance?
It's not within the 1,000 feet,
It's
yeah.
not within 1,000 feet.
But you mentioned
So
where did people park at before the Women's Center? Was it parking there for the pregnant resource? They didn't need it.
Parking garage uptown, meters.
Yeah, commercial use doesn't need it.
And the other side was, you said it was unused for a long time?
said-
Years at least. Long time.
Long time.
Pete's family owned that forever.
Yeah.
Best of Athens bought it.
When my dad bought the building, and those apartments were closed, and he never remodeled it and fixed it, just left it. Wow. The people that had the downstairs next door used it for storage up there.
Wow.
not a good use of space. Yes. So this is specifically just to, the variance would be to allow the no parking spaces. The other thing we have done in the past was made a variance for the distance. Does it matter the approach here? Is it just easier just to say no parking spaces required to eliminate the requirement?
If required, they wouldn't need to lease those parking spaces, so if you did it the other way around, they would need to lease
You
those
could
spaces.
make it a distance
You made
variance.
it a distance variance.
And without the variance,
for either distance or parking spaces, what are their options that are available for them potentially?
So if they didn't need a variance, they'd have to be within have 4 spaces within 1,000 feet of this property.
So that would look like potentially renting at the parking garage. Would that qualify or no? If they could do
It's
that.
probably within 1,000 feet,
Yeah,
yeah, they could do something like that, beat ups or whatever, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's,
Age-old dilemma, parking uptown.
garage is like 500 and change feet, so it's within 1,000 easily.
How far away is Jackie O's?
Oh, it's
3,000.
That's like 3,000.
3,000.
3,000 feet approximately. That's a low estimate, probably.
Does that leave
Yeah.
still enough parking for required for the properties that are the rentals over there?
Well, they're on
That's
the
what
lot.
They're on the lot.
Yeah, they're on the lot.
Presumably.
Those rentals are also houses. They might have driveways? Question mark?
I think the parking's all behind.
So
Yeah, I think a couple of them do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Where's this?
Always was,
I'm
it's
familiar
like
with
people
the
live
lot.
uptown, most of them don't have cars. They're willing to pay for the
Yeah.
premium. That's always been a dilemma since I've been on the board. It's like, why we're requiring these spaces, because most people just want to live close to the action and not have to have a car. And that was always
Yeah.
it's
And if they
been
want
that
to store
issue.
one for use to get home to
Right,
see their
that's
family or
right.
something, then they could do that and
Which
pay for
is
that off-site.
now the city's even offering that parking at the rec center now
Yeah.
with the buses. So I mean, that's been a big push, for years to kind of get rid of some of these parking requirements for a town, because most people are willing to pay the extra not to have a car.
Yeah.
But you probably, assumingly, you would rent that property aware that
Yes,
you're not going
right,
to show up in your
yeah,
car and
yeah.
go, well, where have a car?
Yeah.
I think my main question is, does this unintentionally make it only available to undergrads? And I don't know that it necessarily does, but there's a question of like, if it were rented to professionals, would they need have more need of a car that was actually within 1,000 feet of their residence?
I don't know if that's something we need to worry about, though. As
We
long as
can't
there's,
dictate.
as long as the
Yeah.
developer in this case thinks there's a market for the situation.
If you rented and
That's up
after
to
the
them.
fact find that you can't access your car as readily
Yeah.
as you would like to,
I mean, right. I mean, you should know that when you.
yeah,
Yeah.
or you
You
can,
rent somewhere else. I
you
mean,
can
yeah.
like leave.
Yeah, but I think we're not talking about, we don't have any, job to approve this or not approve
Sure.
this, right? And so what we're thinking about is the development of Athens as a city.
Okay.
And we want this to be, housing everywhere to be available to everyone, not just certain segments of the population. And so what I try to do when I think about this is just say, is there something that I'm doing that only makes it available to one segment of the population?
Okay.
Or
I hear what you're
in some way. I don't think it's a black and white one on this case, but that's my
No, I hear what you're saying. It's
yeah,
a-
that's my worry or my perspective.
I mean, I think any person working at the university that didn't necessarily want to have a car or need one readily available, if they wanted to use public transportation, could easily live in one of these places and then take the bus to East State to get their groceries and whatnot.
Or
And
service industry workers,
working
I
at
know
Raising
some that
Cane's.
don't have cars.
And part of the kind of argument that a lot of cities are moving towards either reducing or eliminating parking minimums, especially in denser areas like this. And part of the argument is we should be letting developers decide, because ultimately, if you let the market decide what the parking requirements are, as opposed to dictating you need X amount of. That leads to overparking, which has historically been an issue in Athens. This is a great use, to add four new good housing units right on Court Street.
Yeah.
And functionally, you can't add, if we're requiring this type of development to have parking, then we are taking away from the ability to add housing, which is you know, you have to, you kind of have to make that trade-off somewhere. And so,
Yeah. No, I think actually, I mean, my preference in some ways is that we just do a 0 parking variance as opposed to a, you know, like 3,000. Like I don't,
Yeah.
I don't know that 3,000 foot
I know,
walk to
I know
a
we don't
car
set
is.
precedent, but that is, like, we're getting into a situation where you're all of a sudden, like, people are trying to find, well, I'm 5,000 feet away, I'm 6,000 feet away.
Right. Yeah. It's like.
Yeah.
Or are you hindering potential other developments who start to feel like, well, I guess I've got to find some parking somewhere near the city, and I'll get my 4 spots somewhere, like out by.
Right,
By
it
little
feels like
fish.
it just moves the problem as opposed to just
Yeah.
saying we don't. Well, let the market figure out the.
I mean,
you know,
the
adjust.
city has done great on just easing up on the parking requirements. I mean, it has been projects not happen because of the parking requirements in Athens.
Case in point, the gas station in Uptown. There was a proposal to redevelop that into retail on the first level
Yes.
and apartments above, and it was the parking requirements that killed that project. So
Yeah.
that would have been a great reuse of that space. The gas station's a bad use of that space.
Gotta have a
And it
gas
was parking requirements that killed it, and that's partly because
Yes.
that was not B2D there, it was B3 zoning.
At the time.
And so that was another problem. That's been rezoned since, which would help some, but it doesn't eliminate the parking requirement, but it reduces it.
Yeah.
So, do we have anything else for the appellant? I think we've been sort of doing our deliberations with you still standing there.
Thank you.
Anything else you want to say before you step down? Okay,
No, I think good discussion.
thanks. So is there anyone here that would like to also speak in support of this request?
We didn't get sworn in, but I was making a point that.
So
Yeah,
if
come
you
up.
do, please come up.
I think you do have to swear him in.
So will you tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Of course.
Thank
My
you.
name's Scott Nisley. I'm a former partner. Now I'm his conscience, I guess. We've developed a lot of property uptown, and we've gone through in my former life, I was a banker. I was the president of the local bank here for 47 years. And so I've seen the whole, what you guys are talking about. I know the history inside out, forward, and backwards. What parking did in Athens was make parking valuable. That's all it did. It didn't solve the problem that they tried to fix a long time ago, which was control student housing in the neighborhoods and other places. So then after a while, they finally realized we made a huge mistake when we did this. And then when we had the fire uptown and the building at 10 West Union Street and the one next to it, we had a building there, didn't have an apartment in it, but our neighbors had 5 apartments in there, and we got a variance to rebuild, and we put 2 beautiful apartments above 10 West with a parking variance, and those things have been rented for 10 years, and we've attracted a very good group of students to, they climb on the roofs and they do things like that, but it's
Their GPAs are good.
and we also own 36 North Congress across from Bromley Hall, which is just the total opposite. It has a parking lot there, there's 8 spaces, and it's party central. So
The sand.
so I mean,
Beach
we could
parties.
show you the fact, but the point I'm kind of making, if you ask me what my variance is, we don't need parking. That the market will take care of those things, and I think as you're pointing out, that's the most important thing. If we want to develop Uptown Athens, and we've got a pace that they want to develop has been sitting for over 50 years, and turn it into housing, which if we can move the high-density housing uptown, and we can open up the neighborhoods to the housing crisis that we have in this community for buying places. So, that's my 2 cents worth. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak in support?
No, obviously in support, but no speech. Scott made a great speech.
All right, anyone that would like to speak in general comment? And is there anyone that would like to speak in opposition to this? Seeing none, closing the floor. And do we need to deliberate further? Jump into the questions?
Any questions?
Exceptional circumstances. So I think the key is it's Court Street, it's uptown, there is no parking available.
Business area, right,
Yeah.
it's basically downtown.
That said, I
high
wouldn't say it's
density.
particularly exceptional. Like, every other building on Court Street has roughly the same problem. You know, I don't know that that means we shouldn't do this, but, you know, like, it's not super exceptional.
Yeah. Most of them don't have parking though.
Correct, yeah.
Practical difficulty, undue hardship.
Yeah, I mean, I think this type of project isn't going to happen if you have to follow, code parking requirements. And I think, like Director Riggs was saying earlier, it's like this is a good model for housing, and I think ideally the code catches up to that. Right now, the parking requirements are overly restrictive for a lot of housing types, especially something like this.
Preservation of equal property rights. Well, there's a lot of grandfathered in apartments, I think, in Uptown that don't have to meet the requirement, but
Yeah.
I don't know what the numbers are on that. I'm pretty sure there's a bunch, though.
Plus, things keep changing with the city trying to attract more people uptown.
And, the Lostro project, I don't know how many of you were here on the board when that came up, but the Lostro project, before it was Lostro, it was the previous developer wanted to put
Two other developers.
They wanted to put studios and one-bedrooms in there, 20 of them, and that's where we granted that distance variance.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think reduced the number as well. Shortly after that, the parking requirements reduced as well. But their pitch was that they were trying to find clients that didn't have cars. That was their target.
Right.
They're there. They're out there, right?
And we're just requiring them to park at the Masonic Temple down on Carpenter was the location that we came up with.
And so we granted a variance for that, for example. Is this a minimum variance? I mean, it's going from 4, I guess, to 0 isn't a big jump, ultimately.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be honest, the parking situation is that most people don't get licensed anymore. I mean, it's just not a thing like, oh, I get my license. I mean, most of the students, they come here with that. They can just Uber, Lyft, get a scooter. It wasn't like it was 20 years ago.
How about absence of detriment? Is anyone being harmed if we do this?
That parking lot that they're referencing usually has open spots at it. Every time I've been there, there's been open spots. I don't think they're like
I would be exactly the opposite. The parking lot is always completely full.
the parking that's at Jackio's, but not their parking lot.
I mean,
I assume-
These are the spots that they're referencing.
Yes, I understand,
the
yeah.
yellow bumper ones are Jackie's. That's always full. Yes.
Yeah,
But they're probably the
Their
same
lot,
property
though,
owner. Jackie is probably
Oh,
the same.
Has empty
yeah. Maybe it's
spots.
just Jackie has people parking in it, but I feel like the whole thing is like always a mess.
Well, the sign says you
I just don't know.
shouldn't,
Yeah,
so.
I don't
Sign
wanna
say you
put
shouldn't.
any more cars down
Sign
Campbell
say
Street,
don't.
personally.
So, yeah, other than impacts at the remote location potentially.
Yeah,
that's-
I'm actually much more like negative on that. Like that's already kind of a mess much of the time.
I mean, the only thing I can think of you could construe here would be somebody in the neighborhood, in the periphery of this area saying, oh, well, these students, so they're going to have cars and they're going to park on the street in front of my house. I don't really see that being an issue here either.
No.
Not of a general nature.
Uptown.
Yeah, I mean, every apartment on Court Street has this, but they've all sort of been grandfathered or found off-site parking.
Some of them have like rear parking. Like if you,
Yeah.
Yeah,
a lot
there's
of them have
blocks behind
these, like
that might have space.
like lots internal to the block.
So if anything, I would suggest this is a recurring nature to an extent. It's not a reason to vote against this, I don't think, but it's just to make the point that reducing the parking requirements further seems to make sense. And I think that that's just the thing to say about this is that City Council, I think, should consider approving changes to reduce the parking requirements in Uptown. I think that would make a lot of sense.
Which they have, right? Hasn't that?
Well, I'll make a note, I think I agree that they should do more, so I'll make a note of that and follow up.
Because it used to be no buffer. It was all or nothing. You had spaces or you didn't
Again,
get the proof.
let the market decide.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, would someone from the board like to propose a motion?
Oh, let me find it. I'll make a motion. Let me go back to it.
I think my only thing is,
Yes.
my strong feeling is that we, like, adding the Campbell Street parking, I don't think that's necessary.
Well, and they're not asking for
We're
it.
not requiring
Well,
it.
it's at least in the notes.
But it's not a part of the
it's not
actual request of the variance.
So we would just do the variance, zero parking.
Zero parking.
Yeah,
As written.
Yeah.
So then we're not stipulating that. If they feel like they need to provide those spaces for their
Yeah,
tenants,
they
they could do that.
Yes, right, no, that's totally within their
So I can make a motion.
Okay.
I'd make a motion to grant the variance, requesting a variance from ACC 23.10, Table B, to allow 0 parking spaces where 8 are required for address 43 to 45 South Court Street.
Second.
Beat them to it.
I'm gonna second every single one.
All right. Any other discussion? Call for a vote. All in favor, please raise your hand. We have 5-0 in favor, so you have your variance.
Thank you.
Good development.
Nice to put me last,
We didn't decide that. We didn't decide that. I think that it's just the order that they come in. Yeah.
So we got to approve minutes.
Right.
I like your thoughts.
Oh, yeah.
So we're not quite done,
Nice
so we need to
project.
finish our business, though.
Thank you. Thank you.
Welcome. So we have minutes from April 8th that we need to review. I've looked at them and others have looked
I make a
at
motion
them.
to approve the minutes from April 8th.
So before we say that, let me just be clear that Paul wasn't here.
I wasn't here.
So the rest of us can vote on
Yes.
this. All right, so
I make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting from April 8th, 2025.
Second. They're gonna take it.
Now you have the perfect record.
all right, all in favor of approving the minutes, raise your hand. Yes, approved.
Yay.
And we're adjourned. Thank you very much.
Yay!